आ रही है, आ रही है। कम करें, कम कर लिया। अभी अभी अपने माइक पे जाएंगे।
All right, hello everybody. My name is Abbas Musfi, Research Fellow at PIDE. I'd like to welcome you all to the 36th Annual General Meeting of the Pakistan Society of Development Economists, hosted by the Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. I'd like to pay my gratitude to the Balochistan University of Information Technology, Engineering and Management Sciences for putting this together, for being very cooperative over the course of the past few months and making this all possible. So how about like a round of applause for BUITEMS, please. Our theme for this year's conference is Charter of Economy, Investment, Productivity, and Employability, Central Factors in the Functioning of Societies, and the keys to economic growth and prosperity around the world. I'd like to thank you all for your participation in helping initiate these important discussions that we need to address if we are to break free of the sort of perverse incentive structures that prevent us from progressing as a country. So I appreciate you all. I'd like to call the speakers for the session to the stage. So Dr. Nabilul Haq, Dr. Nadimul Haq, and Ms. Reena Kionka to stage, and I'll call you one by one for your addresses. Thank you. Please come over here. I'd also like to call Ahmed Farouk Bazai, Vice Chancellor BUITEMS, to stage if he's here. Yeah, I got it. He wasn't here. He just came here. No problem. Okay, I'd like to call Seher Faz Khan for the recitation of the Holy Quran, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان يخسر الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والهب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Dr. Nabilul Haq, Chairman of the Department of Economics at BUITEMS, for the welcome address.
Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. On the behalf of the Vice Chancellor BUITEMS, Ahmed Farooq Bazai, Sitara Imtiaz, Hilal Imtiaz, the Pro Vice Chancellor, Dr. Rahman Khan, Dean, Faculty of Management Sciences, Dr. Abdul Razik, the Registrar, all directors and all deans, I warmly welcome you all at the 36th Annual Journal Meeting and Conference jointly organized by BUITEMS and PIDE. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Her Highness Dr. Rina Kunak, Ambassador of European Union of Pakistan. I welcome all government dignitaries, representatives from all walks of life, and participants from all universities of Balochistan. I feel privileged to be addressing an audience of eminent researchers of our society. I am delighted to be part of this research fraternity. We, the academicians and students sitting in this hall, are a brilliant asset for this country. Universities are a vital source of knowledge creation, innovation, and learning. Universities are a warehouse of knowledge, which they pass on to the next generation. The role of universities in Pakistan is of utmost importance. Policy-oriented research, ideas, innovations by our universities and students can help identify and provide solutions. These solutions can be guiding light for the future generations. At BUITEMS, we believe that current challenges and forthcoming challenges can be resolved by extending the length and breadth of our research investigation. Hence, adopting multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches. At BUITEMS, we believe that local research can provide local solutions of the existing problems. We believe in collaborating with government and research institutes. We believe in inclusiveness of all. BUITEMS as an institute is contributing in research and policy dialogue since its inception. We have organized 7 international conferences. We organized Quetta Literary Festival, in which we promote dialogue on the local issues. We engage people from all walks of life. We discuss issues like economy, management, culture, literature, and social norms. In coming 3 days, we hope that our joint effort could enlighten our thoughts and open our mind for dialogue and debate on the topics of productivity, investment, and employability. At last, BUITEMS is indebted to Vice Chancellor, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, Dr. Nadeem ul Haq, for bringing this opportunity at our doorsteps. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nabil. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Nadeem ul Haq. Before that, just a brief introduction. Dr. Nadeem ul Haq is currently the Vice Chancellor of PIDE. He served as the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission from 2010 to 20... Sorry, you were first? Okay. Not Dr. Nadeem, but Dr. Iftihar first. And so he is the Secretary of the PSDE, of the AGM, and he's currently serving as the Assistant Professor at PIDE and has over 15 years of research experience domestically and abroad during his PhD at the University of Kent in the UK. His research experience contains both funded and self-initiated research studies on various topics, including, but not limited to, resource distribution mechanisms in Pakistan, devolution and sustainable development, environmental fiscal reforms, environmental valuation, SEZs, and CPEC. He has published a number of research articles and research reports and has served as the head of PIDE's School of Public Policy and as Executive Director of the Center of Excellence for China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And so, Dr. Iftihar, please.
Thank you, boss. Honorable Chief Guest, Her Excellency Rina Kiyanka, Ambassador of the European Union to Pakistan, respected President PhD Dr. Nadeem ul Haq, Vice Chancellor BUITEMS Dr. Ahmed Farooq Bazai, worthy Vice Chancellors, policymakers, officers, faculty, students, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to the 36th Annual General Meeting of the Pakistan Society of Development Economists. PSDE is the most important prestigious professional association of economists dating back to 1982, and we have been conducting annual conferences for the last 36 years, this being the 36th one, where we touch upon the most pressing economic and social issues of Pakistan. This year, as you all know, we are facing many challenges, especially political polarization and uncertainty, which are damaging the country like never before. The situation today asks us to ponder upon and agree on the broader agenda to pull Pakistan out of the grave challenges. Therefore, the theme of this conference is chosen to be none other than Charter of Economy, which we believe is to begin with an agreement on the long-term agenda for investment, productivity, and employability. Pakistan has the lowest investment to GDP ratio in the region, with a gross domestic saving hovering around 46% annually, with no regular inflow of FDI. This indeed indicates serious imbalances to our economy to function and produce enough opportunities for 22 million people, where 64% of our population is under age of 30. So therefore, this conference provides a forum to debate and develop indigenous ideas to address the issues causing such worrying state of affairs. Pakistan Society of Development Economists has the tradition to engage eminent scholars from within Pakistan and abroad to generate debate on key development issues, and I'm happy to report that this year we have a Nobel laureate, Professor Michael Spence, and two professors, Professor David Autor and Professor Nathan Lane, David Autor from MIT and Nathan Lane from Oxford, to touch upon the main themes of the conference. Similarly, we have business leaders and practitioners to deliver special invited lectures and be part of panel discussions during the 3 days proceeding of the conference. Moreover, to have the input of the young researchers, we have 22 technical papers by academics from around Pakistan and overseas to touch upon different aspects of the conference. In addition, PSDE is committed to bring innovation and inclusivity through this forum. We have introduced debates, thanks to Dr. Nayab, which we believe would take the deliberation beyond the panel to the audience either participating physically here or online. Similarly, this is the second consecutive year that we have taken PhD conference out of Islamabad to academic institutions. It is the part of an effort to aid local context to our policy debates. I must express our profound gratitude to BUITEMS for hosting us here this year and extending cooperation in order to make this 3-day conference happen successfully. We are also thankful to the University of Balochistan for hosting a panel at their venue. I must add here that this conference is also unique in a sense that it is not just a collaboration between two universities either. In fact, we have the presence of students and faculty from the 7 different universities of Balochistan and 2 sub-campuses of BUITEMS. These include Sardar Bahadur Khan Women University, University of Gwadar, Lasbela University of Agriculture, Water and Marine Sciences, University of Loralai, University of Turbat, and Job and Muslim Bab campuses of BUITEMS. So we can call it a Conference of Balochistan. We believe such efforts will help build networks capable of harnessing long-lasting relationships and much-needed academia policymaker linkages to put our country to the path of development. It is my pleasure to report that we have 6 invited lectures, 6 panel discussions, 2 special sessions, 2 debates, 6 parallel technical sessions, and an open mic session to discuss the main themes of the conference. In the interest of time, I'm not going to discuss the panel's titles or the speakers. You have the program copy, and you can have a look at that there to know what we have tried to bring. With this loaded introduction, we anticipate productive discussion on key policy issues to reach sustainable solutions for our economic issues. It is a tradition of PSDE to finance students to come to PhD conferences each year. Despite deep financial constraints owing to extended lodging and boarding expenses, we have kept this tradition alive. And we have students from all over Balochistan and across presenters across Pakistan to come and speak at the conference. To sum up, the gathering we are having today would not have been possible without the support of the sponsors who remained our collaborators in successfully organizing this conference. PSDE extends its sincere gratitude to all our sponsors for their support. The 36th PhD conference is sponsored by the World Bank Group, Research for Social Transformation and Advancement, RASTA, All Pakistan Textile Mills Association, APTMA, Center of Excellence for CPAC, Frederick Abbott Stiftung, FES, Pakistan Office, Angro Corporation, National Bank of Pakistan, National Poverty Graduation Program, International Fund for Agriculture Development, IFAD, the International Labour Organization, ILO, Pakistan, Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund, the Bank of Punjab, Pakistan Microfinance Investment Company Limited, Nafiz Polypack Limited, Saudi Park Industrial and Agriculture Investment Company Limited. And to conclude, last but not the least, we are thankful to Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, PIDE, for providing us space and manpower to organize this conference. We are confident that witnessing this gathering and the debate to be generated here would convince our sponsors to continue their support as we have put their money to the best use. Wish you a warm, memorable, and welcoming learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ithwar. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Nadeem Al-Haq. It's a brief introduction. He's the current Vice Chancellor of PIDE, formerly the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission. He worked at the IMF for 24 years on public structure reform. He has 5 books to his name, 50 articles, one of my mentors, thought leader, visionary, a man among men. Dr. Nadeem Al-Haq, please.
Thank you, Abbas. Excellency, Ambassador of the EU. Thank you very much for joining us here and being the chief guest of this gathering. Vice Chancellor BUITEMS and Nabil, the BUITEMS team. Thank you very much for supporting us in coming to Quetta. We thought it was a wonderful idea to visit Balochistan and do this in Balochistan. And all the Baloch universities, we've got University of Balochistan cooperating with us, we've got many universities, 5 or 6 universities of Balochistan cooperating with us. And we are very happy to be here. As Iftikhar told you, the the Pakistan Society for Development Economics is a 36-year-old attempt to grow public policy professional association, to grow a network of public policy sort of collaboration. And I must report, who is currently being in charge of the association, we have not succeeded in creating that network. We are still trying. And I hope that we will someday get to that position. This conference happens annually, and in this conference we've been holding it annually in Islamabad. Only once in 2005-06 we went to Lahore. Last year we went to Peshawar. This year we'll come to Quetta. Our intent is to revolve it around Pakistan because this is not Islamabad Association for Development Economics. We want to make sure that we go everywhere in Pakistan. Our job is to create a debate. Our job is to make universities think. Right now, you people are marginalized from the policy table. Right now, universities are just teaching institutions. They do not contribute at all to the policy debate in the country. Sadly, PID has done a book on this, and you'll see references to it when I go through what I have. I'll try and be as brief as I can. Right now, we do not do any network policy development. In fact, universities are not even doing any research. And that's a sad comment on our society, and we should be very careful. How do we move this? क्यों जी ये move करती है? यहाँ से करेगी? Let's see. किसी को पता है कैसे move करती है भाई? मंसूर साहब, ये कैसे चलता है? ये वाला बटन चल रहा है? नहीं चल रहा भाई।
सर वो उस लैपटॉप पे लगा।
वहीं से चला दें, ठीक है? तो next slide. So, our attempt to the PSD is, like the American Economic Association, like the Royal Economic Society, like many other societies, to make it an association that is effective, not politically. We don't want to make it like a bar association. We don't want to make it like the Engineering Council. We want to make it an effective research body, collaboration of ideas and thought, and that's what we'll try and do. Now, as you can see, we are living in a very, very difficult time. Like it or not, we are living in a hugely difficult time. The economic crisis is upon us, and it's a bad crisis. There's so many analysts sitting here, Shrat Hussain is sitting here, Arun Sharif, Soon Shahid Kardar, Salman Shah, many people are joining us, our own faculties of BUITEMS, faculties of University of Balochistan, faculty of Las Bela. We all know that there is a deep economic crisis at the moment. In fact, lots of analysts are calling it a defaulted state. The finance minister was there the other day arguing it isn't. I'm not saying it is defaulted or not. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just giving you the background. We're in a bad state. We are in IMF program after IMF program. And yet, our universities are silent on this. Yet, our society is silent on this. And I think we should take note of that. When I see it on TV, I see all kinds of people talking about economics, but not any of the university professors. So this is something that we all need to think about. So here we are on the 36th AGM in the middle of a crisis, but at the same time, we are a hyper-politicized society. Everything is politics. Nobody cares about the default. Nobody cares about where the economy is tail spinning. In fact, we've packed together an economy with all kinds of controls, and we think we've solved the problem. Does anybody care about the economy or the 150 million youth? So that's what we're going to talk about in this conference. And the whole idea is, how do we bring you people into the game? हाँ जी, नीचे वाला, ओके, अब नीचे वाला हो गया, नीचे वाला तो ऊपर उधर जा रहा है, वापस जा रहा है भाई, हैं? तो वापस है, okay, he's got a point. Okay, so what we've done is we are trying to create, in Pakistan we create policy by external drivers. It's the donors or various people who drive the research agenda. But we're always looking for aid. We are not. Even today, as I was coming in, I noticed $200 million further loan from the World Bank to tackle Lahore pollution. So that's our policy. And we are always in the IMF program, right? I'll keep putting up these things. You'll see PID research up there. I won't talk about it, but we do a lot of work on this, and we hope that some of you will lead it. All of it is outside, I hope. And if it isn't, do tell us. Please take away whatever you like. We are a public sector think tank. We don't necessarily try and make money of our publications, although it would be good if you give us some money. So here it is. Our history with the IMF. 23 IMF programs. 75 divided by 23 is 5 years. Each program lasts a year or more. We have been in an IMF program from day one, and we have never got out of it. Those who say we got out of it are mistaken, because the IMF comes and goes every 2, 3, 4 years. And if you can notice these figures there, the blue line and the green line, almost every program we have not completed. When you see the green line is above the blue line, blue line is above the green line, it shows the program is not completed. So much is left. A crude indicator, but effective. So we've always been short in our performance. That is the testimony to our economic policy. So anybody who comes on TV and says, oh, this government did this government did this government did that, just show them this chart. For 75 years, there has been no success in this country. And that's a huge statement to make, but I'm making it, and I want you to look at it. IMF program comes and goes, nobody talks about it. Academia is silent. This year, PID put out a commentary on the IMF program. We even had a debate on it on Zoom. Unfortunately, university attendance, I'll tell you, was low. That's why I said PIDE-PSDE is not succeeding, because we're not coming together, we are not collaborating, we are not talking. All of us have been to Western universities. We've seen the debates that take place every day there, every day. I keep telling people that my supervisor, Nobel Prize winner, Gary Becker, sat in a seminar every day till his dying day, Tuesday, till his dying day, he sat and listened. He didn't talk, he sat and listened. This is a culture change that we have to hear. In our conferences, people come to talk, not to listen. So that's a huge thing. Then the second thing is, universities don't talk about the growth agenda of Pakistan. PIDE has developed a growth agenda. Again, hopefully you'll get it outside. The growth agenda is very important to the country, and I think the universities should own both these things, both the IMF program and the growth agenda. IMF program comes and goes, and universities are silent. No students are doing their theses on this, and I really worry about that. Why are we not a part of the debate? Okay, so here is some facts about Pakistan, very simple facts. This is a signature chart, PID shows it every time. Our growth rate is volatile. That chart shows you growth rate over the last, I think, 50 years or something. Our growth rate is very volatile. Long-term growth is falling, declining. This should be a big wake-up call to everybody in the country, but nobody wants to talk about it. Secondly, if you go down, you'll see we have the lowest investment rate in Asia. It's always been low. Not that it happened yesterday or tomorrow. Not that it happened in this government, that government. It's been traditionally low. So this TV discussion that this government did better than that government should stop. It's a collective failure of every government, not one government or the other. This chart is enough. And I hope Kamran Khan or somebody would take it up and show it. because we have not invested in this country for the last 75 years. So let's wake up, everybody, and students wake up and tell us what's happening. This chart is also very important. Our productivity is declining. A nation that is not productive, tons of research to show you that. In fact, Paul Romer, my classmate, got the Nobel Prize for this. A nation that is not productive goes nowhere. Our productivity is declining. We've got a national productivity organization, but it doesn't do productivity. Productivity doesn't figure on the cabinet table or anything, so that's a huge thing that we should see it, right? We've done studies on productivity. Umar Sadiq is here. He's done a few studies on productivity, which are fascinating, which you should look at. Detailed studies of productivity. Most interestingly, the export sector is the lowest productivity in the country because it's subsidized. Subsidized sectors don't show productivity. We show that very clearly. Manufacturing doesn't show the productivity, services do. We've shown all this very clearly. National Productive Office, Cabinet Division, everybody, nobody is interested in that. So that's a very important subject that we should focus on and discuss. These are Umar's studies. I won't go into those. Now, the stock market. Or should I say the non-existent stock market? Our stock market, when I was a kid, was 20% of GDP. Harun Sharif used to be a commissioner in the stock market. Now it's come down to 10%. The tradable stock is 5%. So our stock market is shrinking. And students, you must do a thesis on this. Faculty, somebody should talk about why our stock market is shrinking. We've done a few papers on this. Mehboob-ul-Haq used to say 22 families own Pakistan. We've discovered it's only 31 families, not 22 families. So we've gone from 22 to 31 in 50 years. That's a huge statement. We've seen that the board of governors of the PSX 100 is basically Sindh Club membership. No more. It's cronyism at its height, and nobody talks about it. Hey, that doesn't figure. It's which government did this and which government did that. I mean, it doesn't matter which government did it, because the structural reform remains undone. I know my friend Miftah Ismail, who couldn't make it here today, talks about the 1%, but who is the 1%? Let's identify it. The 1% is very clear. Sitting in Sindh Club, sitting in Islamabad Club, and various. We are going to bring this lady over who's done a thesis on this called Big Capital on Big Ideas, I forget now. She's a South African woman who came here and did a thesis on Pakistani policy making, and she's going to come in, I think, March and talk to us. We do a lot of webinars, and we do a lot of webinars deliberately. We do them with all kinds of people, Pakistanis as well as foreigners, and I hope that you people will listen in, because that's what we need to do to make the Pakistan Society for Development Economics, to make us work together. So look at our indicators. We've got very poor productivity, yet, and I emphasize this, and I'll keep emphasizing it again and again, little research, and universities are out of the debate. So we are teaching students economics, and when I interview them, I can't hire them. Why are we teaching kids economics when they don't know economics? So they learn an indifference curve model, but they know nothing about the real world. They don't know nothing about productivity, employment, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why we are urging you to talk to the PSD and think about how we do things. So what are we doing here? This is how can research work? We have built universities, 260 universities, and we did a paper on this, no professors. Per university, we've calculated there are 3 or 4 professors. We looked at Harvard, Yale, et cetera. There are 500, 600 full professors. You're not talking about adjunct faculty and those tuition centers. Full professors, all these universities have 3,000, 4,000 full professors. Here we don't have full professors, but we build more and more universities. People are already building too. Research, we did a book on research. There is hardly any research. Sorry, forget it. There's no demand for research in the country. There's no demand. Nobody demands research, so why should we do any research? We might as well sit on our haunches and say, hey, guys, pay us a salary and we won't do any research. And that's where we are at the moment. So I'm sorry to say this, but that's a fact. Our view is we need ideas in this country, ideas for change. And we can go through back and forth. I've written a book on this. Ideas lead to change. We can keep blaming the politicians. We can keep blaming all the institutions, the establishment, this, that, etc. But we are short of ideas. It's our fault, nobody else's fault. When the Reformation happened or the Renaissance happened, there were ideas. It didn't happen without ideas. So if we are short of ideas, I'm sorry, this space is going to be filled up by whoever is there, because nature can't stand a vacuum. So here, we heard about the Charter of Economy. Everybody told me, what kind of a title is this? We heard about the Charter of Economy, and we said, hey, why shouldn't the universities make the Charter of Economy? Why should we leave it to the politicians? Of course, they will eventually endorse it. Of course, but they're not the fountain of ideas. The fountain of ideas is the university. So you guys should be putting up ideas, and then the politicians, etc., can pick it up and bless it or not bless it or whatever, right? I mean, decision-making is obviously not your job, but idea development is your job, and you should be doing it. So that's why we thought, hey, let's do this at this conference. And what is our Charter of Economy? Our Charter of Economy has to focus on employment, investment, and productivity. Those are the three goals of the economy that we must focus on. Now, of course, people will say, talk about the current account, talk about the reserves, and full disclosure, I come from the IMF. So, of course, my training is to look at reserves, current account, et cetera, et cetera. Look, that is a byproduct of the domestic economy. We can always crunch the current account like we are doing now to behave itself. But it has long-term consequences. We've done that many times. We've written a paper on this, 5 currency crises in the country. This country has 5 currency crises, which we've analyzed very carefully. Each of the crises, we took the wrong policy. It didn't need to happen. It happened because we crunched the economy wrongly, and then, of course, eventually you pay with the exchange rate. That's simple first-year macroeconomics. But ultimately, if there's no productivity, you will have your current account crisis again and again. So that's where we are trying to go. So what do we do about the Charter of the Economy? Well, of course, politics enters. People tell me you can't separate politics from economics. Agreed. But then we have to talk about the politics. It's not that we are trying to get into the civil-military debate or we are trying to get into all this nonsense that people say. But we do know there is a subject called constitutional economics. Buchanan got the Nobel Prize for it. There are so many other people who wrote about it. Hayek wrote a book called The Constitution of Liberty. We can talk about constitutional economics, and we must. The Constitution is the framework in which people work. So yes, nobody's saying change the Constitution or whatever, but hey, there are ways economists have studied all the way from Condorcet to now, voting systems, we can talk about. There's a number of things that we can talk about, and we've got a whole paper, we'll give it to you, that, guys, there must be a negotiated settlement. But that negotiated settlement is not about who's going to rule, like the Charter of Democracy. It's about what is the framework of governance. And it's not about changing the constitution, it's about how to tweak the election system, how to tweak the way the government plays its role, how to tweak the way decision-making is working. And we've got endless things that we can talk about. And most important of all that people talk about, I know all of you want it, but let's talk about it and let's bring it up on the table. Why not local government? That's where it should begin. Our policy everywhere must change. Most important of all, I used to be in the Planning Commission. We've written a book on the Planning Commission. Guys, the Planning Commission is broken. Either kill it, I was telling Ishrat yesterday, either kill it or fix it. But put it on the table, talk about it. The PSTP is now 9 trillion and throw forward. It'll take 20 years on the current PSTP money to finish it, so damn it, that just doesn't work. And we think that this is another idea that we have, we think we don't need to work, everything must be done by the foreigner. Hey, EU give us some aid, ECPIC give us some aid, hey, what's our responsibility? So as Shahid Karda is going to be here just now, we keep joking all the time, we will play golf while everybody else comes and fixes the country. Is that what we want to do? So yeah, we should think about it, right? Okay, so the question is, how can universities come in? Our research framework is there, growth framework, and we'll talk to you about it. Our feeling is, first of all, we must put research into policy. Right now, policy happens on a whim. Or, forgive me, Ambassador, but some donor's suggestion. And there are 100 donors, we've done a study on that. They keep coming up with different suggestions. The government is almost always confused. When I was in the Planning Commission, I used to entertain donors like 8 hours a day, and I had 1 hour to do something else. So, we have to be clear. Where is our universities? What is our agenda? Can we discuss an agenda, or is the agenda always shifting and moving on whims? And I think that we have to do. So, we don't have a plan anymore. Not that I'm from Chicago, so I hate plans. But, okay, growth policy. Hey, what do you want? A medium-term budget. Even the IMF says there's a medium term. Even the US has a 10-year medium-term budget. Some countries, I think Finland is going to a 50-year medium-term budget or something. We don't even have a medium-term budget. Yeah, we have one, that was given to us by EU and DFID, lying in the Ministry of Finance, but totally inoperative, which is 3 years, run by a consultant, OPM, Oxford Policy Management, and nobody looks at it, nobody takes it seriously. Last year, I think that McKinsey people took it up, but it is not taken seriously. We don't look at it. So the Planning Commission either is a medium-term budget place or it isn't. So either close it down or run it. And this is something that we should, again, you guys should think about it. It's very important. We've talked about it a lot, and this is something that you can think about. Well, then we need to go deeper. I told you this shrinking stock market. Industrial organization. What is the industrial organization in the country? We've got the same industries with the same proportions of GDP as when I was growing up. And as you can see, I'm 40 years old, so even 20 years is a lot of time, right? But I can tell you it's much longer than that, for God's sakes. For the last 50 years, we had the same thing. Textile, cement, fertilizer. Textile, cement, fertilizer, sugar. I mean, hey, when is this going to change? What is an industrial organization? What is the concentration ratio there? We're just calculating those, and it's quite bizarre. It's quite bizarre, and so you have to think about it. Real estate, people talk about real estate. We've talked about cities a lot. Yesterday, we presented you a whole documentary on that. Our cities are badly configured, badly managed, because nobody wants to think about them. Real estate has become a boom in this country, but let me tell you, there is no real estate market in this country. I make this statement very advisedly. I make a very bold statement. There is no real estate market in this country. Why? Because the market is where information is available and you know what is being traded where, and we don't have that. The government deliberately doesn't set it up. With the result, then we keep talking about Kabza Mafia. Kabza Mafia thrive when there's no information. So why is there no information? And that's the problem that we have. So lots of things that you can talk about. And then, of course, what we've done is, yeah, this is very critical. Ambassador, we've got a population under 23 is 50% of our population. 50% of population is under 23. And guess what? There are no opportunities. Youth is, we got a survey, I won't go into it in detail, we'll tell you, huge amount of issues of youth. Is anyone interested? No. Will these kids get a job? I won't make my prediction. I don't think they will. So it's a huge issue. Okay, we've done so many studies on employment, I won't go in there. We'll take them up as we go along. We've talked about the growth policy. Okay, all three things, everything intersects where? Something that Ishwar's been talking about for a long time. We are running a 19th century administrative system in this country. People who are still reluctant to use the internet. People who are still reluctant to change their ways to even using the file electronically. We still have paper files. Everything comes down. Our cities are being run by the same group. Everything is run by the same group. We've got a deep problem here that we should talk about. So, our Charter of Economy, very briefly, my time is coming to end, I'll say, we have to think about making a coherent policy. We have to think about Charter of Economy. Very briefly, I'll show you the things that I have on this. So first, we have to fix our politics. We'll go into that during the conference. On the economy side, we'll think about the civil service and all kinds of reform that needs to be done. We have to talk about that. On the, again, administration, we have to talk about the civil service reform, about how policy is made, who does the research, who does the thinking, who does the M&E. We have to get granular. We have to get nitty-gritty. We don't just simply say, hey, we've got a report, now just implement it. The standard refrain in Pakistan is, you've got a report, implement it. And I don't think things work that way. This is the biggest problem that we've got. Sludge. We've done a study on regulation. This country is being stifled under the yoke of regulation. NOCs. I wake up every day and I spend 3 hours doing trivial details. Like everyone will call me, give me a copy of your ID card. So I have to deliver a copy of my ID card. They've got my thumbprint, but they want to take it every time. I have to give my thumbprint every 2 days. When technology comes in, it works against us. I have to give my thumbprint every 2 days. When you want to set up, for example, you want to make a building of flats, it takes you 4 years of permissions. So we've calculated all those. There's the book, Sludge Audit, and we calculated that 40% of GDP, only in a few activities, is lost due to the administrative burden of the country. All we have to do is get rid of the NOC. But nobody can get rid of the NOC. NOC is where a lot of, there are other things too, but we can talk about that. It's okay. So we go into, one thing that we don't like to do, decentralization we hate, autonomization we hate, professionalization we hate. You can't make a professional appointment in this country. You make a professional appointment, God, they're up in arms. How can you make a professional appointment? This appointment has to go to the civil service. Even nitty-gritty little things, and we can't change it. Issue the strike, everybody's strike, can't do it. So there are no professionals anywhere in the government. The whole energy system is stifled, dying because there are no professional appointments. At best, we have a bunch of bankers in Synth Club who we appoint. That's all, who are all our friends. So it doesn't matter. Then we've got, a charter of economy. Nobody evaluates government agencies. We've done the first evaluation. We've done about 5 evaluations. Guys, why can't we evaluate government agencies? We call up government agencies, we want to evaluate you. They're so shocked. We get rude letters saying, don't you dare. Literally rude letters. What was the letter that we got from, we called up, what was that agency? Evacuate Trust. We said we want to evaluate you. They said the authority has, what is the thing? Please to reject your proposal. Evacuate Trust has been holding all our real estate hostage for the last 70 years. Nobody talks about it. So that's what we are trying to do. But hey, nobody talks. That should be in the Charter of Economy. Transactions, nobody worries about transactions. GDP, the way I look at it, if you look at Ronald Kosovoda, GDP is the sum of transactions. If you look at our transactions in this economy is stifling because we don't have enough transactions. So we should talk about that. Finally, cities. Our cities are a disaster. Because we don't manage cities, we have absolutely crazy. So we have to talk about that. Dead capital. We keep talking about it. Large part of, Ambassador, I don't know whether in your country you get palaces when you're in the public service. Here we get palaces, we get cars, we get this. So that's what we call dead capital. And all this public sector land. So we are working on that too. And then we look at, What? Oh, sludge. We've talked about sludge. Okay. So there it is, folks. This conference is all about what I said. I'll leave you here. Please help us build PSD. This year, we're going to take several new initiatives on PSD to truly make it your organization. We want to take it out of PIDE and make it your organization. PIDE will only be the secretariat. We want to give it to you, but we have to think up a credible framework on how to do it, and I'll be working with all of you. Hopefully this year we'll be able to do it. Thank you, folks. All the best.
Thank you, Dr. Nadeem. Our chief guest for the inaugural session is the Chief Minister, who is not here yet, Abdul Quddus Bizenjo Sahab. So we are going to move to Rina Kyonka. She is currently the ambassador to Pakistan from the European Union. She has a long and illustrious career. Just a second. She has a long and illustrious career. So she served as the EU ambassador in South Africa from 2019 to 2020, the president of the European Council, advisor to the president of the European Council. She led the Central Asia division at the European External Action Service. She led on human rights for the EEAS and earlier at the EU Council Secretariat, among other things. So. Ms. Rina Kyonka, please. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I don't know about you, but I feel pretty fired up after the professor's talk. So that call for ideas, call for action, and notably to the students here in the audience. So it's an honor to be here today. It's my first time in Quetta. It's my first time in Balochistan since I arrived in Pakistan at the end of June. And I couldn't think of a better occasion than this conference that is coming at a very difficult time for Pakistan. the world is continuing to cope not only with the consequences of COVID-19, but also with high energy prices, inflation, the costs of climate change, the flood disaster, of course, as an expression of that in Pakistan. And all of these developments are threatening a lot of gains that we have collectively made toward poverty reduction, toward inclusion and economic growth. But, you know, to quote the classics, there's nothing like a crisis to present an opportunity. So I think we may be in crisis, deep crisis, but we also have quite a wide opportunity here to work on. Pakistan and the European Union are celebrating this year 60 years of relations, and our relations cover the waterfront, really. We talk about political issues, we work on economic issues, specifically on trade, but other aspects as well. We talk about migration, we talk about climate change, a lot about climate change, especially lately. And we also focus on development cooperation. So all of those things make up what we call a strategic, a partnership of strategic nature, and we have a plan. Of course, always there's a plan, and one must fulfill the plan and implement the plan, and that's where sometimes we run into some difficulty. So on our development cooperation side of things, we have a 7-year budget in the European Union that's called, for Pakistan, it's called a multi-annual indicative program, and this period, we're focusing on 3 priorities. First of all, on green and inclusive growth, with a focus on private sector development, meaning that we want to contribute to a dream, but for us it's not just a dream, it's already becoming a reality, of a CO2 emission-free circular economy. The second priority is human capital, addressing the skills gap and upskilling, so as to get people into the job market. And the third is strengthening governance, the rule of law, and human rights, which includes also implementation of 27 international conventions that I will come back to in a moment when I talk about GSP+, which is one of our favorite acronyms. We also support Pakistan in the floods, in the emergency relief effort that came about after the catastrophe started to happen here. Together with our member states in an effort that we call Team Europe. I mean, you might have seen on social media, #Team Europe, #Team Europe. What does that mean? That means that the EU institutions, together with the EIB, together with our member states, pool our efforts, pool our ideas, and put our shoulder behind the wheel, behind the car to get it going all together. And this is what we call Team Europe. So when we think about the floods and the immediate humanitarian assistance, then Team Europe together has not pledged, but put into action 138 million euros for Pakistan to alleviate the immediate problems in Sindh, also here in Balochistan. And this is also because, I should also say that this is, this assistance is it's not loans, it's exclusively grants, which also makes a difference in a country like Pakistan. But I mentioned the climate. The climate is changing, as we all know. Every day it's changing faster than we are able to adapt. And therefore, we're putting into place an ambitious legal framework for the world, but also for ourselves first and foremost. And we talk to partners as well about that. The European Union has decided to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by the year 2030. And now you were all probably following very closely what was happening in Sharm el-Sheikh at the COP27, where A lot was accomplished. We would have liked ideally to see more, but I would like to underline the role that Pakistan and the Pakistan climate negotiators played in getting a loss and damage fund agreed. This is the first time in history that loss and damage has been put on the agenda, and it was actually agreed, such a fund was agreed. Now there are lots of questions about how it will be implemented, as always after one of these big international conferences. But Pakistan led the efforts of the G77 to make this happen, and you all should be really proud of that because it's a historic development. The EU is also doing its part. We emit collectively about 9% of greenhouse gases in the world, and we finance, we put in about 30% of all global public financing for the climate. So we're doing our fair share. We're pulling, obviously, everybody could do more, and we believe that public financing for climate mitigation and adaptation is for everybody, for all the emitters, not just for the European Union, but also for others, especially those with big economic stakes in a country like Pakistan. But I'll leave it at that. You can read between the lines. The EU has other initiatives and programs at the service of sustainable economic development. For instance, the European Fund for Sustainable Development Plus, we call it EFSD Plus, and what that is a fund that allows European development banks to de-risk financing for sustainable projects in countries like Pakistan and around the world. We're also quite proud of the Erasmus Plus program, where, again, Pakistan came in at #1 this year for the number of students chosen to take part in this scholarship program. But let me come back. I mentioned GSP Plus. Let me come back to that because it's quite an important issue. GSP Plus refers to a preferential trade scheme that the European Union extends to Pakistan in return for implementation of 27 international conventions on human rights, labor rights, governance, and climate. And it's very close to our hearts. It carries huge benefits for Pakistan. Pakistan's exports to the EU have increased by 66%. Since the country started taking part in this program. And, and that's all good, but it could be a lot better. It could be a lot better. We are encouraging diversification because while in the first 10 years of the program, Pakistan's been, the exports grew and then they kind of stagnated. At the same time, your competitors are going out the roof. Vietnam, Bangladesh, they're steadily increasing their exports. So what we see is a real opportunity for Pakistan to diversify the kinds of goods that it's sending to the EU, to our single market. Right now it's basically textiles and leather goods, but it could be expanded. It could be 3-4 times the amount that it is right now. And all of that, of course, leads to jobs. And at the end of the day, because there's this condition of the international conventions, then it should lead to also better work, a better quality of life, better human rights situation, and a better labor situation. So I mentioned the 4 categories of conventions that any GSP plus country has to fulfill, including Pakistan. There are 9 countries that benefit from this trade scheme altogether. Pakistan has done quite a lot in terms of passing legislation, but it needs to still improve on implementation of some of those areas, specifically on human rights, but also on labor rights. For instance, we continue to run into a problem when the 2 deciders in the European Union, and those are the European Parliament on the one hand and the European member states on the other. They're the two who decide whether Pakistan continues with this program or not. They have all the time, they have questions on labor rights, including on anti-union discrimination, because often what we find is that there are yellow unions, kind of fake unions, not real unions, that continue to take up space in a place where there should be actually bona fide unions. There's a weak labor inspectorate system, and since we are in Balochistan, then I would emphasize the need for that the EU emphasizes the need for independent trade unions representing all workers, not just in manufacturing, not just in textiles, but also in the mines. The fundamental ILO labor core conventions on freedom of association and collective bargaining can only function if the employers are negotiating with independent trade unions and not with the unions that they have created themselves. Let me also just, there's an added benefit here besides just checking the boxes and improving the lives, and that is that empirical evidence shows well that collective bargaining is credited with social progress and social peace in market economies. So it does, in fact, also contribute to productivity growth, and that's something that we would all like to see more of in Pakistan. Let me add one last thing on regarding sustainable development. The European Union has earlier this year has adopted something called the Directive on Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence. And what that's all about is responding to the demands of consumers in the EU, but this is also the case in the United States, in other countries with relatively high incomes. Increasingly, the consumers want to know, where did these products come from? How were they produced? Were they produced under fair labor conditions? Are the people making the, whatever it is, the t-shirt, the football, are they getting paid a just fee? Are they covered by medical, insurance, that sort of thing? Is it manufactured in a way that no child labor was involved? Is it manufactured in a way that does not contribute to polluting the environment? These are the kinds of questions that increasingly our consumers are paying a lot of attention to, and therefore the companies that are producing these goods need to be able to show, they need to be able to demonstrate that when you buy something off a shelf, it's okay. It's been produced in a way that's fair. It's fair trade. And so this is what this new regulation is all about. It will come into force, not immediately, but in a few years' time, and it will make companies that have headquarters in the European Union or have substantial turnover in the European Union, it will make them themselves responsible for monitoring that their entire supply chain worldwide is in compliance with these international conventions. So it's quite a high hurdle, but it's because of consumer demand. Let me also say that creating safer work environments, it's only part of the solution, and that's why I'm delighted to see so many women in the audience today, because furthering women's empowerment is a big part of the solution as well, and it's also something that raises productivity. So great to see the ladies here today. And GSP Plus, let me plug it again, is another good way to, it's a good lever to use to move toward more women empowerment. We're currently working on the fourth and final report for this first 10 years of the GSP Plus, and are looking toward the second iteration. Pakistan will have to reapply for the second iteration of GSP Plus, as will all all countries benefiting from those trade priorities. And so it's a critical time right now for trade with the EU, because one program is ending, the others will begin, and Pakistan needs to put really its best foot forward to convince our parliamentarians in the European Parliament, as well as our decision makers in the EU capitals, that it should be part of the program, because it's so important economically for Pakistan. I will stop there. I've plugged GSP Plus enough and the relationship with the EU, and I wish you a really exciting conference. I can tell it's going to be a great conference. So with the strong support of civil society and business and the government, I feel quite confident that you can make it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And with that, I'd like to bring the inaugural session to a close. I hope you all have a good time over the course of this conference. I'd highly encourage you to not see this as a conference where you are a passive spectator. I would encourage you to participate, to engage in debates and conversations, and initiate thoughts of your own, and so on and so forth. And so, thank you all. Thank you. Our next session is going to be PIDE on investment, productivity, and employability, and that is going to be conducted by Dr. Mariam in just a little bit. Thank you.
The governor is just coming, so please stay seated. We'll start the session as soon as he comes. So meanwhile, we'll just get people on the stage to start the session. Ambassador, thank you very much. Been most kind. Great talk. Thank you very much. We'll inshallah keep you informed of what we do at PSD and PIDE, and hope to have you visit PIDE now. Thank you.
Nadeem, if I'm not wrong, Allah Bakhshi Asad Rahman.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I welcome you all to the 36th Annual General Meeting and Conference 2022, organized by Pakistan Institute of Development Economists, jointly with Balochistan University of Information Technology, Engineering and Management Sciences. We have come to the second section of the conference, and in this section we have just the governor joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. And in this session, it is chaired by Ms. Florence Roll, who is the FAO representative in Pakistan, and the speaker is Ms. Mariam Mohsen. She is the assistant professor at PIDE, and her areas of research are gender and management and critical management studies. Her doctoral research focuses on the interplay of gender, society, and organizations. In her current research, she studies the social construction of gender norms around women employment within both micro-level and macro-level social arrangements. So without any further delay, I would welcome Ms. Mariam to please join in. Okay, right, thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I'd like to invite Dr. Nadeem ul Haq on stage for a formal welcome to His Excellency, the Governor of Balochistan.
Assalamu alaikum ji. Let me say it is an honor to have the Governor of Balochistan with us. Governor Sahab, हम बलूचिस्तान आए इस वजह से हैं कि हम बलूचिस्तान और पाकिस्तान का जो कनेक्शन है, ख़ास तौर पे रिसर्च वाइज, यूनिवर्सिटी वाइज, हम उसको स्ट्रेंथन करें. And that we should make sure that whatever research work we do should be heavily focused on Balochistan too. तो हम पाकिस्तान इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इकोनॉमिक्स जो पाकिस्तान का अबल थिंक टैंक है, उसमें हम काफ़ी सारा बलूचिस्तान पे काम कर रहे हैं. तो उस पर भी हम आपको ब्रीफ करेंगे कि हम बलूचिस्तान पे इस वक्त कुछ 7-8 स्टडीज़ कर रहे हैं. वो हम खुद नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ मिलकर कर रहे हैं. तो वी डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क इन बलूचिस्तान प्राइमरली बिकॉज हम बाकी पाकिस्तान पे भी करते हैं, तो हम कहते हैं हमें बलूचिस्तान पे भी काम करना चाहिए. ब्यूटेम्स के साथ बाज़ाई साहब आप आए ना यहाँ, वहाँ क्यों बैठे हो? प्लीज़ जॉइन अस, प्लीज़. वाइस चांसलर बाज़ाई साहब जी, माशाल्लाह इन्होंने क्या जन्नत खड़ी कर दी है यहाँ. व्हाट अ कैंपस, व्हाट अ ब्यूटीफुल कैंपस. तो बाज़ाई साहब का बहुत मेहरबानी है कि इन्होंने हमें यहाँ बुलाया, इन्होंने हमें यहाँ हमारे साथ फुल कोलैबोरेशन की. तो ये कॉन्फ्रेंस हमारी इनकी जॉइंट कॉन्फ्रेंस है और इसमें हमारी बाकी बलूचिस्तान की यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हमने सबको शामिल करने की कोशिश की है. तो इसके साथ थैंक यू वेरी मच सर. तो हम आपको देते हैं कि हम पाइड क्या कर रहे हैं, फिर आपसे करेंगे. ठीक है जी मरियम.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin by extending a formal welcome from PIDE, the PSDE, and BUITEMS to His Excellency, the Governor of Balochistan, Mirjan Mohammad Khan Jamali, the chief guest for this event. I'd also like to extend a heartfelt thanks and welcome to Ms. Florence Roll, representative of FAO in Pakistan. I'm honored and excited to present the highlights of recent research by PIDE on the themes of this conference: investment, productivity, and employability. Before I begin, I'd like to briefly introduce PIDE to you. PIDE is Pakistan's research think tank, premier research think tank since 1957. PIDE is ranked #1 research institution in Pakistan and among the top 10 in Asia by REPAC. PIDE is currently leading public policy discourse. It also offers degree programs in economics, economics and finance, econometrics, public policy, management sciences, and development studies. Over the past year, 2020 and 2021, PIDE produced 46 working papers, 84 newsletters and bulletins, blogs on COVID-19. PIDE took a special interest in the COVID-19 pandemic and produced over 138 PIDE blogs, 130 newspaper articles, 390 research videos, webinars, and policy viewpoints. Recently, PIDE's research has extended economic development and growth and has been focusing on interrelated areas such as urban management, technology, climate change, institutional reforms, social protection, the power sector, government, market, youth, etc. The theme of this conference, the Charter of Economy, the role of research and academia. PIDE insists and focuses on the role of research, fraternity, and academia in playing their part in building Pakistan's Charter of Economy, because the economic decisions are not just political decisions, they're not matters of political interest, but matters of research interest and matters of academic interest as well. Hence, PIDE has decided to engage the academic fraternity by collaborating with universities and by trying to build a network of universities. This AGM and conference at BUITEMS is one of such efforts. The theme of this conference is 3 of the key issues related to the Charter of Economy, namely investment, and we'll discuss the reasons for low investment, and both local and foreign, productivity, what we mean by it, why productivity in Pakistan is low, which sectors in particular are very low on productivity, and employability. This research focuses on, but is not limited to, how we define employment, how we measure employment, how we measure unemployment, the rates and figures and statistics of employment in Pakistan across various demographic profiles, etc. So we'll go one by one. I'll first focus on PIDE's research on investment. Before we begin, this graph shows Pakistan's GDP growth rate from 1951 to 2019. If you pay a close attention, across all political eras, the GDP growth rate has shown a declining rate. Particularly, every time Pakistan has been part of or involved in any regional conflict, the GDP growth rate has nosedived. The key issues are debt and the IMF, the slow rate of return from PSDP projects, the need for private investment, and the need for deregulation, which will result in growth. Currently, as PIDE insists, Pakistan is a permission economy. This graph shows the number of times Pakistan, since its inception, has gone to the IMF 22 times. And this graph shows the number of times the IMF program was cancelled because Pakistan could not match the terms. This is 1972 to 73, 1980 to 81, and I think every single time after the 1980s other than 2001 and 2013 to 16. So recently, PIDE published a detailed document named the PIDE Reform Agenda for Accelerated and Sustained Growth. This document states that Pakistan has a poor investment climate. It is a permission economy. There are almost 122 regulatory bodies. Regulations, NOCs, permissions, they cost more than 39% of Pakistan's GDP in 3 sectors alone. The document is a detailed policy note. However, from among those, I have picked key action points. We can increase the fiscal space for credit to the private sector, which can result in growth through, if we cut bank holding rate to 60%, 2 trillion rupees would go to the private sector. Similarly, if we reduce currency deposit ratio from 40% to 33%, the private sector will get an additional 1.5 trillion rupees. PIDE has dug deeper on issues related to investment. These are highlights of some of those research papers. Oh. Okay, my bad. All right, it's working. Digging deeper, PIDE finds sludge, the cost of regulation. The sludge series is PIDE's work on the cost of regulation. I have included citations of these research. You can also see screenshots of these research papers beneath this slide. The sludge series talks about how the excessive regulation in the economy curbs investment. There's research on fiscal decentralization and growth. There's research on political instability and bureaucratic control. These are all working papers. There's research showing the control of specific corporate groups and their control on the stock market. This shows that even if investment were to grow, a large part of it is controlled by very specific groups within the stock market. Other than that, Pakistan's investment infrastructure is confined to a few limited sectors. This is very recent research coming out of PIDE. This is work in progress. I've added a screenshot and I'll discuss it in the coming slides. And then there's research on land and investment and the role of housing societies, etc. This is a screenshot of the Karachi Stock Exchange from January to November 2022. Now, this is a very stochastic graph. There is no pattern per se, and it shows a declining trend, particularly after May and July, and this is when the political instability hit. So you can see every time there is political instability in the country, the stock market declines. This shows sector-wise investment of business groups in Pakistan. If we pay close attention, I doubt if it's visible, but I'll say it out loud. Real estate and hospitality, the chunk of investment is almost 11.03%. 10.3 goes to textile, and similar amounts of investment go into power and energy, financial services, automobile parts, manufacturing, etc. Information and technology, these are industries which have resulted in accelerated growth of neighboring economies. Pakistan's investment share into information technology is just 4%. Other than that, Pakistan's consumption expenditure, C+G, shows an increasing trend in the last 3 fiscal years. Pakistan has a highest consumption to GDP ratio, leaving very little amount for investment. It is the highest not only in the region, but in the world. And this graph shows a comparative analysis of other regional countries and Pakistan's consumption expenditure to GDP ratio. Similarly, the investment to GDP ratio shows a completely different picture. Pakistan's investment to GDP ratio is 15%, which is, again, lowest in the world, and private investment is about 10% only. The graph, the one below, if only I could maximize it for you, shows that Pakistan's investment to GDP ratio is the lowest. The orange line is Pakistan, the blue one is Bangladesh, and the pink one is Sri Lanka. The purple one is India. Similarly, PSDE projects show another very bleak picture. 654 of 900 billion is spent on throwback from old projects. There is no money, no sufficient funds for new PSDE projects. The PIDE thesis is that the PSDE cannot sustain new projects, therefore there should be no new projects at least for 10 years because the throwback from previous projects is huge. These were some highlights from PIDE's work on investment. Now we'll discuss some highlights of PIDE's work on productivity. Before we do that, I'd like to discuss what we mean by productivity, what it is. It is the main ingredient of growth. What is total factor productivity? It is the aggregated ratio of output coming out of an aggregated amount of input. For example, if we build a cinema hall and put a certain amount of money into building it, the number of times a movie is watched inside that cinema hall, the number of times that cinema hall is used and generates revenue, resource, that is the total factor productivity. So Pakistan's total factor productivity has been showing a declining rate. If we pay attention, Pakistan's GDP growth rate and total factor productivity growth rates have been showing a declining trend. Despite certain ups and downs, the overall average is declining. Looking deeper, PIDE finds that year-on-year growth rate, again, has been decreasing for the last 50 years. The trajectory is downward sloping. The PIDE reform agenda notes that Pakistan needs a sustainable growth rate of around 8% for a long period. PIDE estimates that increasing productivity from the current level of 2% to 3% or above can increase Pakistan's GDP growth to more than 6%. Pakistan's growth has mostly been input-driven rather than productivity-driven. And shockingly, there is a negative contribution of human capital augmented labor to output growth. This graph shows TFP growth of Pakistan from 2010 to 2020. During this period, the TFP growth rate remained negative 4 times in 2013, 2014, 2018, and 2020. 3 or 4 times when TFP was negative, this was around election times, showing political instability. The 2021 was when COVID hit. So it shows that TFP is majorly impacted by changes in the macro environment and policy stability. This is summary of some of PIDE's work on total factor productivity and factor inputs. There is a negative contribution of human capital augmented labor to output growth. As I said, this is shocking. Why? Because of low level of average years of schooling, and in general, the human capital in the economy is not very skilled. Therefore, the human capital augmented labor to output growth is negative. PIDE has also researched on softer sides other than mathematical and econometric modeling. PIDE has worked on gender and productivity. Currently, a large population of female, working age female in Pakistan are out of the workforce. They're not even part of the workforce. We'll discuss that. And then the role of the cities, how our urban spaces are designed, how the design of our urban spaces are curbing productivity within those urban spaces. Okay, so these are sectors with high TFP growth. This is food and beverage, poultry, investment, cotton and ginning, which is again an export designated sector. It is highly subsidized. And these are medium to low TFP growth sectors. Here, there's sports products, textiles, food, personal care, etc. And more interestingly, these are negative TFP growth sectors. If we pay close attention, several of these are sectors which are highly subsidized, such as leather, for textile, and again, textile spinning and textile weaving. These are heavily subsidized sectors with negative TFP growth rates. The key takeaways on productivity are that there are multi-layered hindrances to productivity in Pakistan. Skill composition of the workforce is not conducive to productivity. There are suboptimal management practices, and there are issues of capacity utilization across sectors. The policy measures are arbitrary. There is no definite structure with stability around productivity. There are issues of technology adoption, and there's serious dearth of innovation. Moving to PIDE's work on employability. First of all, we'll define what we mean by unemployment and underemployment, suboptimal employment, and good jobs. Unemployment, as currently measured by policy circles in Pakistan, comes out of the data from the labor force survey. The question that is asked of the people while collecting data is whether or not they were employed in the week before the time this data is being collected. Now, this method of calculating unemployment ignores whether or not these people were employed throughout the year, right? So this can seriously tell the actual level of unemployment in the country. And there's underemployment. Underemployment is If a person, for example, has the capacity to work an extra number of hours, but they're not being offered that number of hours to work, or the quality of work, for example. And a lot of graduates from university, this room is full of graduates, they find jobs which are not particularly using the skills that they get out of university, right? So that is underemployment. And then there's suboptimal employment. PIDE has, in its opportunities to excel report, worked on optimal and suboptimal employment. Optimal employment comes from ILO's definition of decent work, which says decent work sums up the aspirations of people in their working lives. It involves opportunities for work that is productive and delivers a fair income, security in the workplace and social protection for all, better prospects for personal development and social integration, freedom for people to express their concerns, organize and participate in decisions that affect their lives, and the quality of opportunity and treatment for all women and men. Anything below this is not optimal. This is highlights of some of PIDE's recent research on employability. Statistics show that official unemployment figure of 6.29% as per the current labor force survey masks several aspects of unemployment. 55% of working age population is not part of the workforce. Female labor force participation rates are among lowest in the world. Graduate unemployment is alarmingly high at 43%, and it is 66.8% for doctoral graduates. The percentage of unpaid labor in several sectors is shockingly high. These figures show unemployment rates, the total unemployment rate, female unemployment, male unemployment, rural and urban. The total unemployment rate is 6.29. Again, I told you, the method through which this is collected can seriously undertell. Female unemployment rate is 8.93. Male unemployment rate is 5.48. Unemployment in the rural areas is 5.79, whereas it's 7.34 in the urban areas. This is the proportion of working age population in the labor force. 68% of males, working age males, are in the workforce. 32% of working age male population is out of the workforce. For females, this figure is 79%. PIDE digs deeper into these reasons. Some of them might include sources of alternate income, particularly for females, and discouragement and lack of hope for male workers. These are unemployment rates for youth aged 15 to 29%. Now, if you pay attention, this is people with degrees, right? So 43.5% of people with youth with degrees are unemployed, 66.3% women, and for men, the percentage is 19.1. Now, if you pay attention, the skilled labor unemployment rate is lower in urban spaces. This is what PIDE has been asserting, that cities are engines of growth and cities provide opportunities for people with skills. This is age-specific unemployment rates. I think I'm running short of time, so I'll have to skip through some of these slides real fast. These graphs show gender-wise job status of PhD holders, and this shows that 66% of them are unemployed. 66.8% of them are unemployed. 4% are underemployed, 9% are working in the private sector, 7.4% are working overseas, and 12.5% of them are employed through the HEC program. And this shows doctorate specialization and the status of PhD graduates. The unemployment rate is highest for PhDs in the agricultural sector. Again, this is work in progress. This is very interesting work which is coming out of PIDE. You'll soon see the published report. So hang in there. Yeah, so this is the PIDE thesis, and I'll wrap up with this. The PIDE thesis is that cities are labor markets, they're engines of productivity and growth. Cities provide opportunities and good jobs. We need better cities with low level of regulation and government control, but a defined role of the government. We need cities that are dense, that offer walkability and mobility. And within these cities, there is a very definitive and important imperative role of human capital coming out of universities. And that is why it is important for us here at this forum to discuss the role of cities, the importance of cities in generating employment and employability. And with that, I'll end. And will we do a question and answer session? I would now request His Excellency, the Governor of Balochistan, for a brief address. No? Will the chair speak first? Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mariam, for your insightful and gender-sensitive research. Now I would like to call upon stage the chief guest of this function, the Governor of Balochistan, His Excellency Mir Jan Muhammad Khan Jamali. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome the Governor of Balochistan.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। मैं थोड़े उर्दू में बात कर जाऊंगा। मजाक करते हैं हम लोग कि हम इंग्लिश में पैदल हैं। I'm feeling a little ticklish seeing some distinguished faces sitting before me. I'm getting the feeling that I'm in Islamabad. You know, I'm getting the feeling that I'm in Islamabad. So thank you very much for all the guests for coming down to Quetta. Whatever we can do, I think you are looking after them. Walai Sahab, he's looking after you. I hope they are having their sessions with a lot of meat eating, because the meat is always the good meat is available in Quetta, if you would try it, but in limits, don't fall sick. The feeling of Islamabad is there. Thank you for coming. Let's do something. Give us guidance. Balochistan is like a shepherd boy sitting on a hill of minerals, hill of wealth, shepherding his herd, but not knowing that on what he's sitting, the boy. So that is where you have to help us, nudge us along. And we are people who can make a breakthrough. And let's be very clear, future of Pakistan is Balochistan. We are only 12 million. We are only 12 million people, 43.7% of Pakistan, and the coast is with us. Now this is what we have to avail, this next generation has to avail. And they are going to do it. We are improving a lot. Our female gender has taken off much better than our male gender. Please. Now this is the plus point, and they are like my daughters. They are more responsible. We, boys, we are very impish. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Vice Chancellor BUITEMS, President Pakistan Society of Development Economics, representatives of Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, distinguished guests from abroad, policymakers, and social scientists. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It is an honor for me to be the chief guest of the 36th annual conference, which is held in provincial capital Quetta. I congratulate congratulate all organizers and participants on holding the 36th Annual Conference of Pakistan Society of Development Economics from 22nd to 24th of November at Balochistan University of Information Technology, Engineering and Management Sciences, Quetta. Indeed, a destination full of opportunities and untapped potential yet unrealized. I am sure this conference will facilitate and ensure inclusivity of the relevant stakeholders of Balochistan development. This year, the main theme of the conference is Charter of Economy, Investment, Productivity, and Employability. And I am also informed that the conference features invited lectures by a Nobel laureate. Michael Spencer, eminent international scholars, panel discussions for involving relevant stakeholders, and parallel technical sessions, which are going to be attended by international and national economists, government policy makers, and social scientists. All this reflects the hard work team and their mentors have put in, and I congratulate them. It is irony of fate. Pakistan has a very low investment GDP ratio in the region. This issue needs an urgent attention. Rather, this is a key challenge, and we need to develop ideas to address this situation. With the recent devastation floods have brought on Pakistan, especially the Sindh and Balochistan province, we need to contribute and promote enactment of a pro-poor and climate-resilient economy growth model. This should also be broad-based and help in poverty reduction through evidence-based research. We all know that investment depends upon enabling environment, policies and endowments, available skills set, and labor productivity. Investments facilitate productivity by developing skills, resultantly raises return to work, and thus supplements demand for labor. Investment brings technology and creates an ecosystem to produce, imitate, and innovate. Thus, promote competitiveness, which in turn raises and rewards productivity. Now the question is that we do have to the required institutions to deliver this. After the 18th Amendment focuses on the provinces, but do they possess the institutions and capabilities? This is a question mark. Please guide us. After 18th Amendment, provinces have become very powerful. We don't know what to do with that power. I expect from this 36th Annual Conference that it would answer many such burning questions. In the 3 days to come, I see experts, thinkers, international speakers would be trying to dig deep into the issues which our economy and particularly Balochistan face and provide us with the roadmap, which can be the blueprint, the charter of the economy. The way forward which we politicians, bureaucracy and other organs of the state can adopt for the needed nudge. This nudge would hopefully bring in change required to move Pakistan onto the path to prosperity and development. I have kept my fingers crossed for all conference participants and organizers, and hopefully you will have a memorable stay at Quetta. Thank you all. Pakistan Zindabad. Thank you very much.
Jamali Sahab, Governor Sahab, thank you very much. Very kind of you. Governor Sahab spared his time. MashaAllah, he's got a huge appointment right now. All the ambassadors are here because of something, a big event happening in Balochistan, opening of a hospital. So we have to say goodbye to him. So thank you, Governor Sahab. We'll see the governor off and continue with the proceedings. So please stay seated.
Thank you so much. Okay, now for this session, I would like to call upon the honorable guest, Ms. Florence Roll, to please come and share her ideas. Please welcome Ms. Florence Roll.
So good morning, everybody. I'm going to be very brief because I was supposed to chair a session, so I don't know exactly the role, but I would like to share 2 thank you messages and 2 calls for action. So my 2 thank you messages are, first of all, to have chosen Balochistan, and you've heard the governor said it very nicely by saying it has an Islamabad flavor here today. I think Balochistan deserves attention, and the fact, all these conferences are always in Islamabad, Lahore, or Karachi. The fact that it is in Balochistan is a great signal for Balochistan. So thank you so much to PIDE and PSDE to have organized it. The second thank you is to BUITEMS. I've been here in Pakistan for 1 year and 3 months. I've visited Quetta several times, I think more than 5 times now, which is not too bad, because Pakistan is a big country. And I've never visited BUITEMS, never visited this university. So this morning I arrived, I was astonished by the campus, the cleanness, the beautiful space. So thanks a lot, because it's an opportunity for me to visit, and I have a meeting with the Vice Chancellor to look at the potential collaboration with FAO. So that's my second thank you. The third point is about a call for action. Nadim's speech this morning is always provocative. I'm sure you know that. You've experienced him for many years. So he's trying to organize the research through network. He wants the research to be more active in policy decision-making processes. And I believe organizations like FAO, so international organization, have a role to promote research results into these policy decision-making processes. And, sometimes from a decision maker, it's easier, even if he said the opposite this morning, I'm going to argue with him. Sometimes it's easier to listen to a foreigner than his own people. And so we can be, as international, the convener of course, national ideas and the results of your own research works. So the question is FAO doing its job? I'm sure Nadim would say no. But I would like to be a bit more optimistic and to say to you, we're trying. However, it's a call for action, because you also have a responsibility, you universities, to reach out to us. So it's a two-way responsibility, and I hope together we'll do better. And my last point is for the students. Nadim was also negative about unemployment. He's always negative, but he's negative to provoke us, to find solutions. This is a constructive way of making react. So students, for you, when you hear what Mariam has been saying, there are lots of issues and lots of needs for reforms. And one way is to influence these policy decision-making processes But the other way, it's exactly what the ambassador of the EU was saying when she was referring to the consumer demand. You need to demand. So students, the future generation, you need to demand to your governance system what you want as a future for Pakistan. And these days, you know, with social media, the power of movement can be extremely strong. When you look at the climate change movement, which has happened in developed countries with a young lady, you know, going out from nowhere. So you have a huge potential. You are in big numbers. Social media can help you. Please organize yourself and ask for what you want as reform for your Pakistan, because this is your future. This is not our future. So with these 4 points, thank you so much. Enjoy it. And thanks to Nadim and BUITEMS.
Thank you, Ms. Roll. Ladies and gentlemen, we're running off schedule. Hence, we're beginning the next session immediately. I'd like to call on stage the chair and moderator for the next event, Dr. Ishrat Hussain. The speakers, Mr. Haroon Sharif, Mr. Khalid Mansoor, Ms. Maheen Rahman, and Mr. Ishaq Birni, to conduct the panel discussion, Why Don't People Invest in Pakistan?
और वो महीन और इसाक को भी कनेक्ट कर रहा है वर्चुअली सो कैन यू मेक श्योर कि वंस दे आर कनेक्टेड विल स्टार्ट
श्योर सर थैंक यू We're connected virtually to Ms. Maheen Rahman and Mr. Birni? Mr. Ishaq Birni. It will take a couple of minutes, so please be patient. I'd really appreciate if people took their seats. I'll start introducing the panelists, and meanwhile we'll connect. We're on a clock because we have an online session at 2, so we have to end this session, and I'd really request the panelists to help us achieve our deadline of 1:15 p.m. The chair for this session is Dr. Ishrat Hussain. Dr. Ishrat Hussain was the advisor to the Prime Minister on institutional reforms and austerity, with the status of federal minister, and led the government efforts to reform the civil services and restructure the federal government. In this capacity, he also served as the member of National Economic Council, EC&EC, Economic Coordination Committee of the Cabinet, and several other cabinet committees. The moderator for this session is Mr. Haroon Sharif. Mr. Sharif is a well-known global expert of regional economic dynamics, international development, economic diplomacy, financial markets. He served as the Minister of State and Chairman of Pakistan's Board of Investment in 2018 and 19. He remained Pakistan's lead representative for industrial cooperation in the Joint Cooperation Committee of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the CPEC. Mr. Khalid Mansoor is a graduate in chemical engineering with distinction and honors. He has been the chief executive officer of HUBCO, the first and largest independent power producer in Pakistan. Since May 2013, the company generates approximately 10% of the country's electricity and is a leading private sector player in addressing the energy crisis currently being faced by Pakistan. Ms. Maheen Rahman was appointed the Chief Executive Officer of Infra Zameen Pakistan in 2021 and has played a crucial part in setting up IZP's base operations and its initial structure. Ms. Rahman has over 20 years of experience in investment banking, research, and asset management. Our last panelist, Mr. Ishaq Barni, is the Managing Director of Policy, Strategy, and Relations and Chief Legal Officer of the Astana Financial Services Authority. Ishaq Barni specializes in creating financial center ecosystems in emerging economies. His over 2 decades of experience spans legislation development, disputes, corporate and regulatory law in Australia and the Middle East across all facets of corporate, investment, and financial services transactions and regulations. I would like to welcome all honorable guests on behalf of PIDE, PSDE, and BUITEMS.
Because we find that set speeches are mostly a monologue, which may not be very useful from the point of view of the audience. So what we have decided as a group is for Mr. Harun Sharif to act as the moderator and ask a set of questions to all the panelists, and then open it up to the audience, because we want to listen to you. The conference can only be useful when it is a two-way street rather than a one-way direction. So we are deviating from the normal pattern, and we want your input. So last half an hour of this session would be devoted to your question and answers. Please ask questions, but do not make long speeches, because that will take away the whole thrust of this format. So without much ado, I would like Mr. Harun Sharif to begin with his opening remarks and then try to moderate the session by asking questions from the panelists. Mr. Harun Sharif.
Scene is so rapidly changing. We are going towards a slowdown. So please keep that in mind, because the topic today is investment, productivity, and employability. So at the time, it's a kind of a time where people are consolidating economies, and Pakistan is no different. We have, a lower GDP growth based projection of 2.2% for this year. So we need to work in this environment. Since the overarching topic is Charter of Economy, so I will start with a little lighter note. A few months back, somebody high in the power approached me, and they said that somehow all political parties can talk to you. So can you quietly speak to them about Charter of Economy? So I said, sure, but where is Charter of Economy? So they basically looked at me, they said, there's no Charter of Economy. So I said, what am I going to talk about if you don't even have a white paper or a piece of paper? So thank you, Dr. Nadeemul Haq and PIDE, for at least having this Charter of Economy paper, which people can debate and talk about. The point I'm trying to make is that we need to look at some evidence. We need to learn from our failures, other successes, and come up with, some kind of an agenda to have a dialogue. A dialogue just to have a social talk does not necessarily lead to outcomes which one is looking for. Few words on investors. With my experience, investors are looking for 4 or 5 things. It's a very competitive environment. We have heard about examples of Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh. First and foremost, and that is where I would also say that now the private investors in China and others, that is a policy which prefers investment, a policy which is competitive, policy consistency. Please, today I'm going to talk about that with panelists. Do we have institutional capability to keep anything consistent? That's a question which all of us need to reflect. So they look at policy, they look at consistency. The infrastructure, we are obsessed with economic zones and others. Infrastructure in the pie of investment climate has little space, important space, but it's not the thing. Let me give you statistics. Almost 50% of specialized economic zones fail because people only focus on a wall and land. You don't focus on making enabling economic zones to attract investment. Investors look at dispute resolution. We need to look at our judicial system. We spoke about RACODEC and others yesterday. Do we have a system to actually, deal with commercial disputes? More importantly, a mindset that welcomes investors. And that's where, before I finish and call the speakers, we have a history of missed opportunities. And the fundamental thing which stops us from bringing investment to Pakistan is the mindset which is not welcoming and open to investors. We have tried to solve our economic issues from debt and bargains done on our geopolitical positioning. I think all of us need to ponder, is that the way forward? That just because of our geopolitical positioning, we ask for some money or handouts or bailouts, or we want to now move towards a dignified, competitive economy which can actually attract people on its own. Now that's a question I would leave to all of you. Now with these some words, missed opportunities, you will remember that when I was part of the team with Prime Minister Imran Khan, we went to Saudi Arabia, we came up with a $21 billion package. We announced it, okay? We went to Qatar and the Amir of Qatar came, another 10 billion commitment to invest in Pakistan. China was already investing. Malaysian, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad came here, showed keen interest. The point I'm trying to make is that we have been successful in giving the message that Pakistan has the potential and we are open for business. Today we are going to talk about it, that why can't we do that business? We are open, but are we ready for business? And this is what I think we should honestly talk about to ourselves, that are we really ready for business? Why don't all these big, tall commitments basically materialize in Pakistan? And Balochistan has a very special place for today's discussion because the commitments I'm talking, almost 30% of these were aimed at Balochistan. So we will try and unpack that why we couldn't do it. So it's the question of why, from the first panel where the question of no, now I'm moving to question of why and how to move positively forward. So with these words, the order is, I've been told that we've been cut short by 15 minutes. So we have about 75 minutes, 1 hour, 15 minutes. I would like to keep each speaker with questions for 5 to 7 minutes, so that in 30 minutes we can actually get answers from our worthy speakers. Then we'll open up the floor for 30 minutes for debate with the audience. And then I'll request the chair, Dr. Ishrat, to give his closing words. So with this, I would like to basically invite, the first speaker, which is Mr. Khalid Mansoor. He has been introduced. He has vast experience of corporate sector. He also remained, for 6 months or so,
Sir, 9 months.
9 months or so, as Special Assistant to Prime Minister on CPEC affairs. So he brings public policy, because now he's part of a very large advisory firm of power sector in the UK. So he, with this kind of experience, so let me start, with Khalid. The first question I would pose for the audience, that you have spent almost all of your life in corporate sector, okay? So is our corporate sector really growing, or is our corporate sector focusing on the areas of productivity and employment? And certain, a little provocative question, why can't Pakistan, we see Angros and Hubcos where you have been associated. None of these companies have tried to set up operations cross-border or trying to bring a multinational. We see Tatas and Birlas and others. So let me start with corporate sector. Do you think corporate sector, private sector is a success? Is it stagnant? Or where is it heading? Let's start with that.
Arun, thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's a great pleasure to be in Quetta. And I relate with Balochistan quite a bit because my last assignment has been in Hubco, and Hubco is the company which is in Balochistan. Well, I have spent almost 28 years part of Exxon to begin with, and then Angro, and then about a year working in Africa, and then, headed Hubco for almost 8 years. Harun, the question is very pertinent, and I will give some actual experiences while working in Angro. Angro was Exxon, and Exxon was one of the biggest giant, I would say, globally, and they set up the fertilizer business in Pakistan. So when the fertilizer business started, they had almost 90% share, but their share kept on reducing, and they did not expand their investment in Pakistan. Finally, they decided to divest out of Pakistan, and they offered the opportunity to employees to buy that company and then, start the operation of fertilizer. So that was probably one of the biggest success story of employee-led buyout. And this company became Angro, and thereafter there has been a huge investment by the private sector, and I will very, very quickly, engage the youngsters because it is all about mindset. Part of huge global organization is good, but you are kind of shackled. But employees, when they were helm of the affairs, now Angro is a multi-product company. When Exxon left, it was only 268,000 tons of urea, and we needed to grow. So the employees came up with an outstanding idea, perhaps for the first time in the world, and that is what you see the intellect capacity of Pakistani workforce was concerned. We chose global world-scale plant, one in the US and one in the UK, and decided to dismantle, relocate, reconstruct in Pakistan, and in one attempt at a 33% of the cost, 1/3 of the timeline, the production capacity of urea was increased from 268,000 tons to 600,000 tons. And thereafter, multiple growth, initiatives were taken, and the capacity was taken to 1 million. Now company was prosperous. When it became prosperous, then the world scale investment was done in fertilizer sector of $1.2 billion of investment, and that is where the production capacity went to about 2.5. Now employees were engaged, and that is what you see. I was hearing loud and clear what Dr. Nazim said, that with the engagement, with the cross-section of the employees, the question was asked where they would like to see the company 5 years, 10 years down the road. This is what is called the vision. And the dream was then envisaged, and employees said we would like to be a diversified company. And thereafter, if you know Angro now, they are into foods, they are into petrochemical, they are into infrastructure, they are into information technology. And the last project which was I involved, and this is one of the most passionate thing, was that Anglo diversified into energy and power, and the writing was on the wall at that particular point in time that country is going to be plunged in darkness because we have not really developed our indigenous resource, which was Thar. $175 billion of investment, but nothing was coming about. So again, it's a long story, but since time is of the essence, a first time public-private partnership was developed. And that was that Anglo will manage and government of Sindh will invest. And based on that, you see the huge investment, which was about $2 billion, that was made in Thar. Mashallah, now the mine is up and running, and there are 3 plants which are there based on the indigenous fuel, which was the need of the hour, rather than based on our energy needs on the imported fuel. And now I can tell you, as part of my responsibility at CPAC, that Thar promises the energy security of the country, because there is so much coal over there, we can produce a couple of 100,000 of power over there, and now based on that coal, we can go into gasification, which is going to be then giving us opportunity to have the petrochemical products, etc. So that was the story of investment and, you know, the thinking out of box and feeling empowered, and that is what Anglo was all about. Now, coming to HUBCO, HUBCO was, you see, one of the largest IPP, but only 1600 megawatt. But when the CPAC was envisaged, and you know, I feel honored, I was part of the team which went to China, and we envisaged that what should be the framework of CPAC, and we realized that China wanted to have a quid pro quo, because they're willing to help us in really alleviating the power crisis, but at the same time, they wanted the connectivity from Xinjiang province all the way to Gawada. And that is a separate area, we will cover that, what we have accomplished in that one. However, with that initiation, HUBCO decided, you're talking about investment of private sector, that we want to grow. We would like to be the biggest company. Envision was that we would have almost 10,000 of megawatt. So within a period of 8 years, huge transformation of HUBCO has taken place, and now the production capacity of HUBCO is almost close to 4,000 megawatt in less than 8 years. And the biggest investment was in Balochistan, and that was the first under the CPAC, which was $2 billion imported coal, and the only joint venture between China and Pakistan. And now the Thar is growing, and Thar capacity was developed, and HUBCO took the equity over there, and 2 power plants had already been set up, and third will be coming very soon. So answer to your question is that as long as you have the vision and then you have the strategy, so there is no reason why the private sector should be able to grow. But I would like to conclude by saying that in my humble opinion, and having seen the public sector very closely, I think the biggest investment should be possible with public-private partnership, because corporate sector would not have that kind of muscle. The Thar would not have developed, because at least close to $1 billion investment was done by the public sector, which is transmission line, which is road network, the effluent disposal system, the airport, and so on and so forth.
I'll come back to you in the next when we talk about the hindrances and then Balochistan. But with that, are we connected to Maheen Rahman?
Yes, I'm there.
Ji Maheen, welcome to the conference virtually. It would have been wonderful if you were here physically. But Maheen Rahman is CEO of InfraZamin, but with her experience in financial sector plays a huge role in basically complementing or promotion of investment. There are questions, for instance, in Balochistan, why don't we have a development bank looking at Balochistan, So the money indigenous, we always look outside, as Dr. Nadimul Haq and others alluded to. But Maheen, first question to you is, in the earlier session we heard that stock market is not delivering. So I would like you to actually respond that is stock market really doing what it should be doing in terms of capital formation or reaching out or giving savings products, or is it just a trading house of a few, as mentioned, dominated by Sindh Club in the first, session? So over to you, Maheen.
Thank you, Harun, and thank you for the toughest question, I think, of the day. कि हमारी stock market क्यों नहीं हिलती है? Assalamu alaikum everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I wish I could be there in person. However, I think main issue तो ये है कि when we look at the stock market, हम सोचते हैं कि yes, it's a collection of smaller people, smaller investors, larger investors that have really kind of monopolized the market. Reality is that if we look at the stock market performance and we sort of eliminate the overall index for it, what you will find is there are a few companies, I would say gems, that have actually seen a tremendous increase in their value over the last, say, 6 or 7 years or so. And as an investor, it is my fundamental belief that जहाँ value addition हो रही होती है, वहाँ investment जरूर आता है. I think I can just quickly take maybe 2 companies that have sort of bucked the trend. हमारी market 2016 में तकरीबन 46,000 के level में थी. आज 2022 में हम 42,000 के level पे struggle कर रहे हैं. तो market तो overall तो decline में नहीं है. लेकिन उसमें अगर आप देखें कई ऐसी कंपनीज हैं जिन्होंने एक्चुअली वैल्यू क्रिएशन की है, वैल्यू एडिशन की है, बिजनेस को एक्सपेंड किया है, अपने आप में इन्वेस्ट किया है, अपने लोगों में इन्वेस्ट किया है, and they have seen that result both in their bottom line as well as in their share price performance. One of those, for example, is Mizan Bank, which is now the country's third or fourth largest bank. लेकिन इनकी जो जर्नी रही है पिछले 6 साल में आप उठाएं तो शायद ये नंबर 9 या नंबर 10 थे in terms of banking. लेकिन उन्होंने एक growth strategy adopt की, इस्लामिक बैंकिंग पे फोकस किया, अपने overall deposits को बढ़ाया, अपनी lending को बढ़ाया, and the market rewarded them from that. Back in 2015, 2016, शायद Mizan Bank की share price तकरीबन 80 रुपीस थी, 50 रुपीस थी. वो 50 रुपए से अब लेके I think just crossed over 200, and that at a time the market declined कर रही है. Similarly, आप Systems Limited को उठाएं. Systems Limited is an IT firm, an area जहाँ पे पाकिस्तान ने actually काफी growth देखी है. So Systems was about 80 rupees. I would say 4-5 years ago, they again touched 700 rupees at the peak. So I think as investors, जो major point होता है as an investor कि आप value addition देखें. और अगर बाकी कंपनीज ने ये नहीं परफॉर्मेंस दी है तो वो स्टॉक मार्केट इंडेक्स तो रिफ्लेक्ट होगा. लेकिन सवाल ये होना चाहिए कि why have some companies outperformed in terms of delivery of value addition versus other companies and industries that have been at standstill or a decline. And शायद this is the main point here कि हमारे पाकिस्तान में बहुत सारे ऐसे business houses हैं, industries हैं that work on concessions or advantages received from the government of Pakistan. And in doing so, they adopt a more rent-seeking model rather than a model of value addition. And that is the primary reason where the market or investors do not reward them. And this is really when we talk about a charter of economy and we talk about policy consistency, these are areas we have to focus on. कि जहाँ हम rent-seeking देखते हैं industry में, उसको हम किस तरह eliminate करें and move our businesses and our corporate sector towards value addition and growth rather than simply looking at it from a baseline कि किसको क्या advantage दिया, किसको क्या advantage नहीं मिला. And I think ये चीज़ जो है ये investors actually recognize करते हैं चाहे वो stock market में हो या फिर private investors.
बहुत शुक्रिया जी, thank you. Is Ishaq Bernie connected? जी वंडरफुल टू हैव यू इसाक साहब. आपसे तो पहला सवाल जो है ना बड़ा सीधा सा है. नाउ कमिंग फ्रॉम दैट इन फ्यू मिनट्स, 3-4 मिनट में आप हमें ये बताइए कि ये जो आप फाइनेंशियल सेंटर बनाते फिर रहे हैं, कभी कतर में कभी आस्ताना में, यहाँ पर हम लोग तो हमारे ब्यूरोक्रेट्स और हमारी मिनिस्ट्रियाँ ये सारा काम खुद से कर रही हैं. व्हाट इज़ दिस फाइनेंशियल सेंटर एंड व्हाट इज़ इट डूइंग इन कतर एंड आस्ताना? Just tell us in very simple words, then we'll move to a little bit more complicated question in the second round.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir. So, thank you very much for inviting me. Always a pleasure to actually be, speaking at any conference in my country of origin. Recently, I became international export of Pakistan. Human resources is one of our biggest exports, and that does actually that is to undertake large-scale reform, something that is very close to perhaps Vishal Saab's heart, and basically fundamentally reform the principal economy. Or if you admit that that will take perhaps a longer time and perhaps a more sustainable method as well, there is an alternative path, and that alternative path is to build an overlay on the inherent deficiencies of the system and build a front end. So when we look at Pakistan, perhaps the Board of Investment is one institution that was meant to do that. You yourself have led that institution, and I think you're very familiar with the kind of challenges that you can face in terms of what exactly is your mandate, how much power you have to actually change things. So I ended up going to Qatar and working on creating something called the Qatar Financial Center. It happens to be very well.
Technology is good.
Now, university, working in a country which fundamentally does not advocate FDI into the country.
Information technology.
Unfortunately, when I name those numbers and tenfold investment into Qatar and a country like Pakistan, it doesn't present a very good story. So then, about 2 years ago, Kazakhstan, again a country that had many inherent problems, like some of the illnesses in this country also compared to some of the illnesses that Pakistan tracks on at that level. And they also decided that what we will do is build a financial center to basically energize and help the investors come into it. And when we talk of a financial center, what are we really talking about? So not to bore people, but the news I know is a big fan of Paul Romer, and what he used to advocate in my very Kalami English is that आपने जहाँ अच्छे systems और regulations बनाए और उनको आपने observe किया, तो उनमें automatically जो resources और investments हैं, वो automatically flow कर रही हैं from places who haven't been able to do that. So I very much, I think I have lived the Paul Romer story from my experiences. And if you create a financial center which is based on English common law, which seems to be the language and the legislation that is used primarily in the majority of the financial transactions of the world, you create a court system which is parallel to your state system. Then that system is equipped with judges of international repute. In fact, Qatar had the former Chief Justice of England, Lord Wolf, as Chief Justice. He then came to Kazakhstan to also set up the courts and hold them here. And Lord Mans is now the President of the Court of Appeals of England, is now currently, used to be the former President of the Court of Appeals, is now the Chief Justice. It gives comfort to investors that should things not work out, there is somebody who is actually looking after it. And you also need to create an alternative dispute resolution system and your legislation which is based on international standards in that.
Ji Ishaq, I'm sorry, I will intervene time ki wajah se. Could you just let us know the number of companies which Qatar and Astana has attracted? We'll come back to you again with more details.
Sure, sir. So, currently, in its 3 years of operations, 2 years spent in pandemic, and we have over 1,500 firms present here, which also includes the likes of Chevron, etc., direct investment funds, over 20 investment funds, 20 asset managers, banks, insurance companies. It is basically a reformative project for the entire sector, and that exists in 3 years.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll get back to you. One of the key message of the first set of questions is coming that investors are looking at a space where they feel comfortable doing business. And my humble experience is that government is not that space. That is why countries are creating, there is a Dubai International, DIFC, Financial Center. Qatar followed, now Kazakhstan. People are creating a space, जो मैंने पहले projects की बात की थी, Saudi and other, They got basically dead in the ministries. If we create a space where professionals can deliver, they work 24/7, the law of the land, in fact, what Mr. Burney is saying, does not apply to these financial centers for disputes. They work under international law so that investors feel comfortable. So this is something we need to think कि हम ये बाका चीफ सेक्रेटरी साहब के ऑफिस के या कोर कमांडर के ऑफिस के या लाइन मिनिस्ट्री से काम करना चाहते हैं या हम एक प्रोफेशनल ट्रेंड की तरफ जाना चाहते हैं जहां इन्वेस्टर्स कंफर्टेबल फील करते हैं. That's the message I wanted to give. Now getting back to, we have only 15 minutes left, so a couple of minutes. To Mr. Khalid Mansoor. Khalid, after COVID, the global investment levels have gone to $1.5 trillion. Pakistan is less than basically $2 billion a year. Now, you pointed out that how companies invested where you've been involved in. Tell us 3 big hurdles. Is it politicians, bureaucrats, mindset, or something else? What is stopping us from getting this investment? Very focused.
Yeah, well, within 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. Look, you see, I will give the practical example when I was inducted as advisor to the Prime Minister and looking after the CPAC. Well, first of all, there's a lot of misperception or perception-based assessment what CPAC was all about. But let me give you some good news as well, that phase 1 of CPAC has been over, which has brought almost $25 billion of investment in this country. 5,000 megawatt is up and running, 3,500 megawatt will be up and running in next 6 to 8 months, and 4,000 megawatt is still in the pipeline, which will happen. Infrastructure, then, Matiari Lahore transmission line for the first time in the, optical fiber and so on and so forth. I think the main reason when I started, I was engaged that now the phase 2 of CPAC has to happen. What is CPAC phase 2? It is all about the industrialization. So there are 11 joint working groups, and the way the platform work or the network work, that the bureaucracy of Pakistan and bureaucracy of China, they must engage and discuss that in variety of sectors which projects are to be implemented. Okay? So there are 11, and the latest one was science and technology, agriculture and IT, and huge potential in that one. And once the agreement is made in those 11 joint working groups, the final ratification is done by JCC, the Joint Coordination Committee. So my job was to now make all those projects happen, which is part of the phase 2, and that is the only hope to bring the industrialization in the country. So when I started to interact with the ministries, that look, each ministry has got, let's say, 8 to 10 projects. So my interaction with the minister and the secretary and the staff, please let me know where is the plan where you will take these agreed projects into execution. To my surprise, there has not been an iota of work in all those projects. So that is where, the main issue was. Now, the areas where the investors are already working, they have so many bruises, they have got so many pain points. I will just give a couple of examples, timing is short, that when I went to, Allama Iqbal Special Economic Zone, so I realized that there was almost $1.5 billion of investment from the small investors. They are into LD bulk, they're into tiles, they're into, other various small kind of businesses. But they were all bruised because they said that they have been really moving from pillar to the post, and they had number of problems. And to my, utter surprise, if any investor has to make a business plan implemented, there are 38 provincial and the federal approvals or NOCs which were required.
So sludge.
So that was approval, which was given to the Prime Minister, and he agreed that rather than approval kind of environment, it should be a kind of audit environment, that the investor comes, he should be treated with a one window operation, and he should not be running from pillar to the post to get the NOCs and the approvals. And the only thing is that you have an undertaking from them that they should be, complied with the law of the land. And subsequently, there should be an audit, and they are non-compliant, there should be a penalty thing. And once, you started to interact with all those investors, I'm talking about small investors, honest to God, I tell you that, very, very quickly they said they are going to be doubling their investment, particularly in, textile sector. Last experience, that when I went with the Prime Minister to China, first of all, we have been going to these countries without zero preparation. So first of all, what was done, that we developed a competitive and comparative analysis, that when we go to China, we tell them that what we bring to the table, what country really offers, rather than just saying our friendship is higher than Himalaya, deeper than Arabian Sea and sweeter than honey. So those competitive and comparative analysis were done, and there were 20 meetings which were chaired by the Prime Minister, and those meetings were held with the Fortune 500 companies in variety of sectors, agriculture, IT, textile, pharmaceutical.
But what's the hurdle?
No, just when we came back, there was an endorsement of, honest to God, I'm telling you, $44 billion for investment in these variety of sectors. The moment we came back, and the main thing was, they said they did not want to waste the time because of all those, approval processes. And that is where Prime Minister promised them. And then as soon as the execution process started, unfortunately, we were back to square one. And all those investors right now on the back burner, and I am still connected with the Chinese. They want stability. They want, not wastage of their time. And if Pakistan has to offer them opportunities other than the alternate destination, what Harun mentioned, Cambodia, Vietnam and Bangladesh, there's an excellent opportunity for Pakistan, because in China, labor-intensive industry has become unviable. They are relocating their industry, and Pakistan gave much more comparative edge. If we clean our house, if we clean our house and we provide conducive environment for the facilitation of these investors, I tell you, that's the silver lining, that inshallah, Pakistan will get the industrialization, and 3 key objectives will be achieved: import substitution, export orientation, and employment, which is in line with your.
Thank you, Khalid. Very kind, very clear message. In the bureaucratic system, the questions of competence and follow-up. In the overall system, basically, the capacity to structure projects and, bring investors in. That's where
we should be implementation focused.
The implementation competence, I'm saying, that we really don't have. And that basically, please, think about that we try and do very large projects because politicians like it. वो फीता काटना होता है.
Exactly.
But do we really have the competence to actually manage those transactions? We need to invest in that. Getting back to Maheen, I hope you are still connected. That raises the question, Maheen, of development financing. ये project financing का पैसा कहाँ से आएगा? देखिए, in Pakistan, I understand lots of people, what been talked about, people are investing in gold, people are investing in real estate, people are investing in dollars. There is no investment going in projects which actually resonate to the theme of this conference. Productivity, enhancement, employability, exports. So Maheen, my question is, in the current financial sector, what is the risk appetite for project finance, particularly in areas like Balochistan? Or should we go back to the old model of development financial institutions, which are dedicated to that but not state-run? So basically, your view of the financial sector's capability to, leverage investments.
A simple example is really focused on the kind of risk that a bank is willing to take. बैंक के अंदर बहुत focus होता है collateralization by providing the financial sector with comfort in the form of guarantees towards project finance solutions. A simple example I will give you is recently we financed or enabled a financing of a digital infrastructure project, which was all across Pakistan for fiber optic layout, internet access, as well as SME and commercial internet connectivity. And we did that by providing a guarantee which then enabled the company to raise approximately $10 million from the country's largest bank. Now, इस situation में reality ये है कि बैंकों के पास liquidity बहुत है, capital markets में भी liquidity बहुत है, लेकिन कोई risk लेने को तैयार नहीं है. तो हमें ऐसे innovative financial solutions लाने हैं जो not only look to develop the project, but else also then look to provide comfort to the local market to finance these projects. I think हमारी आदत थोड़ी यही रही है कि हम बाहर से पैसा ढूंढते हैं, लेकिन reality ये है कि बाहर से पैसा आए क्यों अगर we ourselves as Pakistanis and as Pakistani financial institutions are not willing to invest in the project ourselves. So इस gap को close करने के लिए we need better solutions. Some of those can be in the form of obviously guarantees that Infrazaman is doing, but other solutions as well in terms of how to develop the project to make it commercially viable, which will then enable a bank, a local bank, to lend to it and release the capital formation that way. ये चीजें काफी जरूरी हैं if we want to create a financial system that looks towards risk sharing, risk taking, rather than simply taking deposits from the public and investing it, the vast majority of it, in government securities. So I think Hamara as an economy and as a financial system, our ability to take risk, to understand risk and to take calculated risk certainly has to go up quite tremendously.
Thank you very much, very clear. I think Khalid Mansoor has a quick comment on that. After that, I'll go to Mr. Bernie and ask him.
Harun, in the audience, I am advising a project, another project, 330 megawatt, which is going to be, inshallah, implemented in Thar. The balance sheet, the financial agreement has been made. It's a consortium of all the leading banks like, Mizan, like National Bank of Pakistan, like you see Bank Al-Flah, Bank of Punjab, etc., etc. $100 million will come through an offshore line, which is being done through UBL, right? And the remaining, you see, the foreign exchange component is going to be, $200 million, $500 million project. Now, we are very close to have the financial close. It's a, project financing. But what is the main hurdle? That even if the financial close is taking place, the first step is that you need to make payment to the EPC contractor. LCs are not being established. And there is a $100 million gap which has to be approved by State Bank of Pakistan. So that is the meeting 2 weeks ago I had with the, the governor, and I said this is a project of national importance because we need to have more power generation based on indigenous fuel. So there is a lot of reluctance at the moment from the sponsors that if we have done anything and somehow they are not able to really have the LCs established, then that is going to be bringing a kind of showstopper.
Thank you very much. I think the message is quite clear that the risk appetite needs to be reviewed, as Maheen is saying, but also hurdles because of our macroeconomic, fault lines, which you are mentioning, that central bank is not. In fact, when I was chairman board of investment, my biggest complaint from my company's foreign investors was they could not repatriate money. And that is something, अगर वो अपना profit या पैसे भेज नहीं पा रहे, dividend नहीं भेज पा रहे, तो basically why should they invest more? तो ये सवालात तो हमारे ज़हन में हैं, which we will debate in a while. Badi Sahab, I'm coming back to you in Astana. You have been a distinguished, Pakistani who has been successful in setting up, ventures, financial centers outside. Now let me ask you a question. The countries like China and others, they have benefited from diaspora. Professionals living outside who have come back and contributed. और ना सिर्फ वो पैसे लाते हैं, बल्कि वो professional advice भी लाते हैं. Now what has been your experience, with the community you deal with? Diaspora हमारा पाकिस्तान में क्यों नहीं invest कर पा रहा? Or people like yourselves, do you really think if an opportunity is given in Pakistan, there is space for you to actually set up a financial center in Pakistan? Let me be very straight.
Thank you, Harun sir. So, I mean, just primarily, I mean, like, you know, from this perspective, I mean, एक चीज़ जो पहले मैं बताना चाहता था कि I think there's this tremendous amount of support for Pakistan in a lot of its diaspora. That's given. They would, you know, speak for Pakistan. They always reach out whenever, like, you know, they feel that the tea leaves are right to help Pakistan out. And they do. You know, but I think सबसे जो important चीज़ है कि they should not be seen as just sources of remittance and also basically source of hot money. There is so much more that they can do by way of institutional investments. They can actually not just see Pakistan as some place that they can, you know, place money in debt instruments and you know, take a quick return, but as a place where they can actually make value-adding investments as well. And I think many Pakistanis do. Unfortunately, like, you know, they get stuck in the same myriad. I mean, very simple सी बात है. Zada, like, you know, जो Pakistani diaspora जो export हुआ था, with time they have become foreign nationals of other countries. And when they become foreign nationals of other countries, I think very much they start, you know, being as second-grade citizens of Pakistan. अगर आप उनमें से किसी को सिर्फ किसी board पे ही appoint करने की कोशिश करें, so the security clearance process required to actually appoint someone who is now a foreign passport holder onto a board in Pakistan is quite significant. So of course, अगर वो investment करवा भी सकते हैं, but बाद में उस investment में कोई active role नहीं ले सकते या उनकी involvement जो है वो you know, security clearances में stuck हो जाए. So they would be reluctant to do that. So I think primarily, like, you know, that whole process of, like, you know, security clearance, not just from, you know, Pakistanis who wish to, you know, be on boards and then look after their investments in Pakistan, but also for foreign companies जो कि पाकिस्तान में invest करती हैं, कल को उनको boards पे रखा जा सकता है, जो उनके shareholder representatives हैं. That is a big issue in Pakistan, and many people for that reason actually are swayed away from investing in Pakistan. जहाँ तक सवाल है सर ये पाकिस्तान की, you know, काफ़ी लोग मुझे कहते हैं कि जी FATF. Personally, for me, FATF is a हवा. It's escapism and excusism for, like, a lot of people in Pakistan from saying कि जी पाकिस्तान में investment क्यों नहीं हो सकती. Yes, the last time I looked, Dubai a couple of years ago was on a European blacklist from tax purposes, and they were also on the grey list, and the FDI numbers have actually gone up this year in Dubai. So, you know, I don't buy that angle that sometimes say कि जी मतलब FATF की वजह से लोग नहीं जाते या उनसे घबरा जाते हैं. I think the support and everything is there, and there is a massive investor base in additional to institutional investors. जिनके अगर track clear हो investment का, तो they will definitely come and make a lot of investment, and that is a rather large pool of investments for Pakistan.
Thank you very much, Ishaq. I think again we need to think. You know, this whole session is about thinking that, you know, why diaspora is not coming to Pakistan, either with their professional competence or with money. And that is something, you know, we haven't tapped. Now, since we are short of time, I will go back to Khalid Mansoor for a very quick 2 minutes. Your take on Gwadar, that how is it shaping up or not shaping up as, you know, an investment place for Balochistan.
We'll do.
Just 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you. पहली चीज़ तो ये जी कि पहले आपको ये समझना है कि, you know, why CPAC. देखें, I have been part of the framework building. तो जो One Belt One Road का initiative है, that is a long ancient desire of China. और उनसे उनकी economy की long term sustainability है from western part of China through Gwadar. That's the reason, you know, connectivity. तो इसीलिए वो CPAC को कहते हैं it's a flagship project of One Belt One Road initiative of Xi Jinping. Gwadar को they call it's a jewel in the crown, because if, you know, the trade of China is going to be shifting from eastern part to the western part all the way through Gwadar, that is where they want connectivity with Europe, Africa, Middle East, so on and so forth. During my time, देखें जो main चीज़ है कि इस वक्त free zone है. पहले वो 60 acres का free zone था और 46 enterprises have already established their businesses. 12-13 are already up and running and other are coming. There was a need felt by a lot of interest. उसके बाद जो second free zone है, that is 2200 acres, 37 times bigger than that. That is where, you know, inshallah, क्योंकि CPAC जो है वो 2030 तक चलेगा. अभी phase 1 हुआ है, phase 2 होना है, अभी phase 3 भी होना है. So once that is done, you know, you need that kind of land, or वो free zone है, fiscal incentive and so on and so forth. Now what has been done so far? सबसे बड़ा issue जो गवादर का था वो ये था, when I interacted with the people, and it was this kind of town hall, तो उसके अंदर उन्होंने कहा कि जी कि गवादर के अंदर इतनी मेजर इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रही है, लेकिन हमारे बुनियादी जो मसाइल हैं वो क्या हैं कि ना हमें पानी मिल रहा है, ना हमारे पास बिजली है, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. बिजली का जहाँ तक ताल्लुक है कि इस वक्त तक गवादर को नेशनल ग्रिड से कनेक्ट नहीं किया गया था. अब वो प्रोजेक्ट जो है वो बिल्कुल आखिरी मराहिल में है, और 132 kV की ट्रांसमिशन लाइन इज़ गोइंग टू कम टू गवादर. गवादर में इस वक्त बिजली कहाँ से आती है? इट कम्स फ्रॉम द ईरान. कोई 120 मेगावाट का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, लेकिन जिस वक्त ईरान की अपनी रिक्वायरमेंट बढ़ती है तो उसके अंदर कर्टेलमेंट शुरू होती है. दैट्स वाई 16 to 18 आवर्स ऑफ लोड शेडिंग. अब वहाँ पर गवादर ईरान के साथ एग्रीमेंट फाइनल हुए, और उन्होंने कहा कि थ्रू अनदर पार्ट वो 100 मेगावाट देंगे, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. लोगों की इमीडिएट मसाइल हल करने के लिए वी वेंट टू चाइनीज एम्बेसी, और उनको बताया कि जब तक एंगेजमेंट लोगों की नहीं होती है, दे शुड फील कि इतना बड़ा मेगा $1 बिलियन के प्रोजेक्ट्स हो रहे हैं लेकिन उनके फंडामेंटल मसाइल हल नहीं हो रहे. तो चाइना ने डोनेट किए 3,500 सोलर पैनल. बट द मेन क्वेश्चन वाज कि अगर आप उसको ट्रांसपेरेंटली इंस्टॉल करेंगे तो देयर वाज एन एग्रीमेंट कि हाउ दे आर गोइंग टू बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड. तो एक वर्किंग फोरम बनाया गया जिसके अंदर पाकिस्तान आर्मी थी, जिसके अंदर लोकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन थी, जिसके अंदर और नेवी के भी लोग थे बिकॉज दे प्रोवाइड द सिक्योरिटी. और उसके बाद देयर वर 2 मेजर रूफ टॉप सोलर कंपनीज. उनको कहा एज पार्ट ऑफ देयर CSR वो आकर इनको प्रो बोनो इंस्टॉल करें. तो आई एम हैप्पी टू रिपोर्ट कि वो प्रोजेक्ट माशाल्लाह इतनी ट्रांसपेरेंसी के साथ और इतनी एक्सपीडिशनली चला कि ऑल द 3,500 पैनल्स हैव बीन इंस्टॉल्ड on the roofs of those poor fishermen. इस success के बाद I was just mentioning last evening that received a message from the ambassador that they would like to now donate 3,500 more. तो ये इनकी short term हो जाएगी और long term ये होगी. पानी का जहाँ तक ताल्लुक है, प्रोजेक्ट वो भी डोनेशन पे था चाइना से. इट was sitting in Ministry of Planning for years. तो 1.2 million gallons का जो पानी है, it is going to be sea water reverse osmosis. समुद्र से पानी लेंगे और पीने का पानी बनाएंगे. वो अगले 3 महीने के अंदर कमीशन होने जा रहा है. जो आपका अपना पानी है स्वाट डैम एंड शादी डैम से, उसके अंदर कनेक्टिविटी गवादर के बैटरी लिमिट तक हो चुकी है. मेन मसला ये था कि डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सिस्टम आपका अंडर साइज था, तो उसको भी अपग्रेड कर दिया गया है. अब वहाँ पर जो लोग किसी भी गलियों के एंड के घरों में रहते हैं उनको भी पानी की तरसील शुरू हो जाएगी. 2 more things. देखिए इस वक्त सबसे बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है, एंड दैट इज़ वेरी क्लोज टू माई हार्ट, कि स्टेट ऑफ द आर्ट टेक्निकल इंस्टीट्यूट चाइना की मदद से बना है, और वहाँ पर मल्टी स्किल्ड लोगों की रिक्वायरमेंट होगी. और वो रिक्वायरमेंट कहाँ से आएगी? जो मैंने आपको बताया कि 60 एकड़ और 2200 एकड़, वहाँ पे जब इंडस्ट्री लगेगी तो इंडस्ट्री स्पेसिफिक एक्सपर्टीज चाहिए. तो वो यूथ के लिए एक बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है. अगर उसको प्रॉपरली मैनेज कर दिया गया तो इंशाल्लाह ताला I have lot of hopes कि youth are going to be getting huge opportunity for their development and also employment. Lastly, एयरपोर्ट बन रहा है $250 मिलियन का, वो अगले साल कमीशन होने जा रहा है. जब इतना बड़ा एयरपोर्ट which is going to be biggest in this country, तो that is going to be creating number of job opportunities for the local. और similarly जो हॉस्पिटल है वो अब इंडस हॉस्पिटल के तवस्सुत से उसकी ऑपरेशन होगा, और तकरीबन 150 बेड का हॉस्पिटल होगा. चाइना की वो भी ग्रांट से लग रहा है, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. फाइनल कमेंट ऑन दैट वन. फाइनल कमेंट बिकॉज देखिए इस वक्त जो बात होती है कि चाइना के अंदर जो वहाँ पर एक कंपनी है जिसको आपने गवादर पोर्ट का ऑपरेशन दिया है, उसके अंदर हमने ये देखा कि लिमिटेशन ये थी कि दे हैव नॉट रियली डेवलप्ड द यूनिक सेलिंग प्रोपोजिशन ऑफ गवादर. Why the business should come from Middle East to Gwadar, because that's the biggest challenge. और दूसरा उनका कोई marketing plan भी इतना solid नहीं था. और what I believe कि with those kind of initiatives by Ministry of Maritime Affairs and China, अगर इसको properly market किया जाए तो very quickly the business should be shifting from Middle East to Gwadar.
Thank you very much for explaining. I would like to open the floor. We have time for 8 to 10 questions. We will take 2 sets. अपने आप को please introduce yourself. बताइए किन से panelist से सवाल है, and be brief. So starting from here.
Hello, This is Gonzalo Varela from the World Bank. Very interesting session. Pakistan, if you compare Pakistan with the rest of the world is about 330 times larger than Pakistan's economy, right? So people talk about Pakistan being large, but the rest of
Can you speak a little louder?
The rest of the world is much larger. So it's likely that foreign investors have, there's a big opportunity there in attracting investment from foreign investors. Yet at passing, you mentioned, Harun, how it is difficult to repatriate profits. So thinking about the question of this session, that is why don't people invest in Pakistan, it seems that the answer perhaps is there because they cannot appropriate the returns of their investments. So thinking about that and thinking also about the fact that Pakistan has an investment law of 1976 that is extremely restrictive, that says foreign investors cannot come in sectors in which there is domestic investment, which basically means in all sectors. How do you think the enabling environment can be changed to attract more of this investment from the rest of the world that, again, represents 330 times the size of your economy?
Thank you. We'll take 2 more questions in this thing. Ji Yasir.
Yours? After Yasir. Ji Yasir.
इधर माइक्रोफोन देंगे?
आप कर ले?
आप कर लीजिए. चलो.
Myself, Mohammad Faraz, and my question is relevant to the question he just asked. ऊंचा कर ले सर. Okay, sorry. नजदीक कर ले अपने. Okay, so my question is that a country like Pakistan, with somehow having unfavorable international reputation for investment, we need to mobilize some critical mass of local investors to attract foreign investors. What have previous governments have done already to attract that critical mass from local investors, and how do you see like current governments putting their efforts to mobilize that critical mass, and how do you see the prospects of these efforts?
ठीक है.
Thank you.
Dr. साहब. इधर दीजिएगा डॉक्टर नदीम को, and then we'll take Yasir.
जी, मेरा तो बड़ा सिंपल सवाल है जी. Very simple question. Why should anybody invest in Pakistan, including us, when Pakistan is not a proposition worth talking about? I was just looking at the market cap.
Speak louder, we can
आवाज नहीं आ रही.
We can barely hear you.
Folks, ये क्या है भाई? दोनों माइक पकड़े, एक माइक पकड़े. Okay. मैं कह रहा हूँ जी कि why should anybody invest in Pakistan, including us? हम लोग तो इन्वेस्ट नहीं करना चाहते, तो बाहर वाले कहाँ से आएंगे? ठीक है जी. मैं अभी मार्केट कैप्स देख रहा था, एनग्रो के और लकी के, 2 of our biggest companies. Both are worth 150 billion rupees, which is about $600,000, $600 million. तो अगर 20, 30, 50 साल की सब्सिडी के बाद ये कंपनीज अभी तक सिर्फ 500 मिलियन की हुई हैं, 500, not even $1 billion, तो फिर हम क्या, I mean, really, what are we investing in? So the question to ask first is कि जी हम इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर तो बनाते रहेंगे, चीनी से पैसे लेते रहेंगे, सब कुछ होता रहेगा, बट अगर हमारी बिजनेस नहीं ग्रो कर रही तो ये इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हम किस लिए बना रहे हैं? लेट्स स्टॉप मेकिंग द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. लोन ले लेके हम पागल हो गए. सीपैक का पहला, आपने कहा खालिद साहब के सीपैक का पहला फेज खत्म हो गया, $25 बिलियन मुल्क में आ गए. वो कहाँ गए? डू वी हैव एनी रिटर्न ऑन दैट इन्वेस्टमेंट, या वो हमें अब लोन पे की शक्ल में नजर आ रहा है?
ठीक है.
जी यासिर, relevant question. मैं fourth ले लूँ. I'll come for the second round इसके बाद. जी यासिर, very quickly.
जी, thank you. Quite relevant to what already been asked. ज़्यादातर हमारी जो foreign direct investments भी आती हैं वो ऐसे sectors में आती हैं जो कि local demand को serve कर रही होती हैं. There is nothing much कि जहाँ पे हम, because one of our major issue is balance of payment. So अगर हम और repatriate ही कर रहे हैं dollars, बजाय ये कि हम कुछ export करके और कमाएं. And I think जो एक और चीज़ discuss करने के लिए वो हमारे ease of doing business है. So I think अगर इस पे भी कुछ बात करें.
We got 4 questions. I think हमारे जो panelists हैं. Anybody wants to start?
Let me.
आप कीजिए.
Okay, let me put this in perspective. In 2007 and 2008 and 2008 and 2006 and 7, Pakistan received $5 billion of foreign direct investment, when India received $12 billion. And the size of Indian economy at that time was 6 times Pakistani economy. Why was it happening? There was a consistency, predictability of economic policies. There was a quick repatriation of royalty, of dividends, of the profits and the interest, because we had built up $16 billion of reserves. And multinational companies from all over the world were investing in Pakistan at that time. Today, India is attracting $81 billion, while we are attracting less than $2 billion. So you have to compare the enabling environment where the investor is not sure whether he will get the return. At that time, the rupee was stable at 60 rupees to a dollar, so the dollar returns and the rupee dollars are equivalent. Today, somebody who had invested at 100 rupees a dollar, what is his return at 220 rupees? So macroeconomic stability, enabling environment, predictability and consistency of policies, ease of repatriation of the profits, these are the ingredients why you can attract. If all of them are absent, I don't think even the local investors will come in, because they do not know what is going to happen tomorrow, whether they will get the return, opportunity cost of capital. In today's world, 100 countries are competing with each other. Why should they come and put their money here? Because there is no guarantee that they will even be able to get their LCs confirmed because of the macroeconomic stability. So I think we have to take a holistic picture of that rather than taking a very partial picture and say one factor or the other. And this goes along the entire horizon of the investment, not only just domestic, but both the foreign and domestic. We have to treat them equally. If we treat the domestic investors, give them some preferences, and we don't have a level playing field, forget about the foreign direct investment.
Maheen, if I could come to you for the first question about the restrictive, laws and the enabling environment and returns on investment as compared to our competitors. Your comment, please.
Sure, thank you. I think Dr. Ishrat has answered all those questions that have been put forward with his statement. The reality is that without any long-term policy vision, it is incredibly hard for an investor to have any idea in terms of where their investment will go. And perhaps nowhere is this more stark than the tax laws of Pakistan. Tax, in my view, is very convoluted. It is designed to be, penalty focused rather than incentive focused. And because it is prone to changing every fiscal year with the annual budget, it can overnight turn some industries from being viable to being unviable. So in my view, not only does the overall consistency of policy have to be in place, but the taxation that is accorded to any particular industry or new setup needs to be crystal clear. Because without that visibility, as an investor, it is impossible to make a decision that is a long-term decision, which is not just 10 years or 20 years. It can be almost up to 50, 60 years. So that vision is very needed. I think the key reason why investors did come to Pakistan in the past as well is because it is a large market. It is a market of 200 million plus people. It has a strong consumer base, and the companies that have been here and made that investment, whether they were foreign or local, they have actually made a tremendous amount of profit over this time period. You can talk about Nestle, you can talk about Unilever, you can talk about Engro, you can talk about all these companies that began their investment cycle and process, or decades ago, almost 40, 50 years ago, are today have managed to weather the storms, but at the same time, we have not managed to gather new entrants into these markets. And again, that is because there is a constant about U-turn on the policy side, which hence makes it difficult for anyone to take that bet on Pakistan.
So policy
there's a lot that
consistency
to be
comes
resolved.
as the major factor.
And FBR.
Yes, absolutely.
The FPRB, taxation, policy consistency. Before I come to you, Khalid, for this Angro question, why companies are not growing in infrastructure, I will have very quick word from Ishaq Barni. You basically sit in financial centers, so aajkal in Asia, which are the 2-3 destinations where global investors are going? So that, we should learn from them.
Vietnam, Cambodia, those are the,
let's see, the numbers.
Number, मैं आपको बता
So, should stop saying, that's Vietnam, Cambodia, but I think Central Asia is perhaps another area where, by and large, there's a lot of people who are not aware of, the relative position of this. I mean, they have big logistical challenges. So I think something that Pakistan can really help out in terms of, resolving some of their logistical challenges. एक और चीज से मैं actually the second question that was asked today, अगर आप इजाजत दें, very quickly I wanted to comment.
जी, quickly.
There's many things that people can do. For example, when you worked on the ease of doing business index, etc., to grow that. But indices से ज़्यादा पाकिस्तान का ज़्यादा बड़ा problem, as someone who used to work very, very closely, as you know, with the sovereign wealth fund, in all committing $2 billion to investing in Pakistan. लोगों को फंडामेंटल फियर पाकिस्तान का ये नहीं है कि मार्केट छोटी है या ग्रो नहीं करेगी, उनका सबसे बड़ा फियर है कि पाकिस्तान इन्वेस्टमेंट करने ही नहीं देगा. रिटर्न तो बहुत दूर की बात है, पैसे वापस ले जाना वो तो बाद की बात है. फंडामेंटली पीपल बिलीव कि पाकिस्तान में इन्वेस्टमेंट आपको करने ही नहीं देंगे. एंड आई थिंक इन दैट सेंस थिंग्स लाइक सॉवरेनिटी, नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एंड पाकिस्तान की रेंट सीकिंग एक्टिविटीज जो हैं, इनका सबको पता भी है, मगर और ये और कंट्रीज में भी एग्जिस्ट करती है. बट परहैप्स फॉर अ टाइम इट वुडंट हर्ट कि पाकिस्तान टू पुट दोज ऑन on important scale, but slightly on the secondary thought process, because investors को सबसे बड़ा problem तो ये है कि ये investment पाकिस्तान में करने नहीं दें.
Fair point, ji. Very straightforward from somebody who is seeing, the global investors, that they look at Pakistan, that the country creates hurdles. It's the mindset, it's the rent seeking, it's the policy gaps. So I think we need to be realistic, अपने आप से सच बोलना चाहिए, and try and find a remedy to that. बजाय इसके कि हम एक perpetual denial में बताते रहें कि जी हम बहुत अच्छे हैं और बहुत opportunity है. खालिद साहब, 1 minute on Angro और उसके अंदर why, as Dr. Nadeem said, the market cap is not big enough when you look at around, in the world. We keep on, saying कि बहुत अच्छी कंपनी है, लेकिन जब आप comparison करते हैं साउथ एशिया से भी, तो छोटी कंपनी है आपकी. What's the issue?
जी डॉक्टर साहब, एंग्रो इज़ माई ओल्डर कंपनी. अब आप ये देखिए कि मुल्क के अंदर एनर्जी का क्राइसिस था. जो इंडिजिनस गैस है, इस वॉज dwindling. गवर्नमेंट ऑफ पाकिस्तान अप्रोच एंग्रो बिकॉज ऑफ इट्स स्ट्रेंथ फाइनेंशियल एंड टेक्निकल कि आप RLNG मुल्क के अंदर लेकर आएँ, राइट. इन्वेस्टमेंट वॉज डन, IFC हैज़ इन्वेस्टेड इन दैट वन, वर्ल्ड बैंक, सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. और मैं अपने वसूख से बेस्ड ऑन माई एक्सपर्टीज इन एनर्जी सेक्टर कि अगर RLNG मुल्क में नहीं आती तो यू वुड हैव इवन वर्स्ट क्राइसिस ऑफ द गैस. ये सब कुछ जब हो गया तो द चेयरमैन ऑफ द कंपनी वॉज देन कॉल्ड बाय NAB, और उसके बाद इतना स्ट्रेस था पूरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के ऊपर कि दे हैव डन समथिंग फॉर द नेशनल इंटरेस्ट, एंड NAB इज बीइंग ग्रैब रेपुटेशन लॉस एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. तो अब आप मुझे बताइए कि इस किस्म के एनवायरनमेंट के अंदर बिग कंपनीज they will think thrice if there is going to be something of the net. Number one.
Fair point.
दूसरा जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के ऊपर जो है हारून, because that is the lifeline for the country. थर की continuous expansion चल रही है, और थर के अंदर अब जो नेक्स्ट फेज है, आई एम रिपीटिंग अगेन एंड अगेन, दैट इज द कोल गैसिफिकेशन. क्योंकि $25 बिलियन का जो इम्पोर्ट बिल है, उसकी सब्स्टिट्यूशन कहाँ से आएगी? कि यू हैव टू हैव द गैस गैसिफिकेशन एंड देन प्रोड्यूस. डॉक्टर साहब, आपके सवाल का जवाब, जब तक ये नहीं, ये सवाल एक और था कि ये जो आपने इतनी इन्वेस्टमेंट कर दी उसका रिटर्न आ रहा है या नहीं. डॉक्टर साहब देखिए,
جس وقت سی پیک نہیں لگا تھا 38% پاور جنریشن واز بیسڈ آن امپورٹڈ
fuel, which is furnace oil, which is the most expensive choice of fuel. اب جب یہ انویسٹمنٹ آئی ہے, آپ دیکھیں انویسٹمنٹ کس میں آئی ہے, انویسٹمنٹ تھر میں آئی ہے. تھر از دا انڈیجنس کول, اور اس کی جو فیول کاسٹ کمپوننٹ از 1/4 کمپیئر ٹو دا فرنس آئل. اس کے بعد رینیوبل پروجیکٹس آئے, اس کی وجہ سے جو ایوریج ٹیرف ہے ملک کا وہ ریڈیوس ہوا ہے, اور جو انڈسٹری بند ہو گئی تھی پرٹیکولرلی ان فیصل آباد میں, دے اسٹارٹیڈ ٹو آپریٹ اینڈ دے ہیو ارنڈ the historical best profits when the power crisis were not there. تو سر بات ساری یہ ہے کہ مین مسئلہ یہ ہے کہ ہمیں جس وقت پاور ڈیمانڈ آتی ہے نا, تو مسئلہ یہ ہے کہ گرمیوں کے اندر ہمارے پاس پاور نہیں ہوتی, اور سردیوں کے اندر کیا ہوتا ہے کہ کیونکہ انڈسٹری نہیں ہے اور جو آپ کا ڈومیسٹک لوگ کم ہو جاتا ہے تو ہم کہتے ہیں کہ پاور ہماری
Let's
جاتا ہے.
take a set of 4 more questions. Let me say somebody in the back, the lady in the back.
جی آپ پلیز مائک ذرا کوئکلی ان کو دیجیے. اسٹوڈنٹس کو انکریج کرو. جی وہ پیچھے سارے اسٹوڈنٹس ہیں.
I would very much like to encourage the students to ask questions, please.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I just want to ask that we are only stuck in the if and buts. Is this all discussion is about the high level, but if I just talk about the micro level, as being the student or citizen of this country, we are only stuck in the if and buts. Like we have talked about the less employment, less investment, less productivity level. So why do we always talk about the problems? Why there isn't any solution for that? There was told by somebody about middle under employment, such kind of like that. So we are only talking about the opportunities, but there isn't any ladder how to build in that.
We got it. We come back to this, Dr. Ishrat. Ji, let me take 2 more from the back. ایک اور پیچھے سے اس سائڈ سے. جی آپ بتائیے.
السلام علیکم سر, میں عبد الباسط.
اونچا بولیے.
اونچا بولیں سر. میرا کوشچن یہ ہے کہ پاکستان ایک ایگریکلچرل کنٹری ہے اور ہماری تقریباً 40% جو وہ ایگریکلچر میں ایکسپرٹ ہے یا ان کے پاس ایگریکلچرل ایکسپرٹیز ہے, لیکن ہماری گورنمنٹ ہر ٹائم جو ہے وہ صرف انڈسٹریز کی طرف فوکس کری. جیسے کہ ابھی سر نے کہا ہے کہ 200 ایکڑ ہم نے فری زون دے دیا گوادر میں اور اس طرح.
جی بالکل سمجھ آ گیا, اس پہ ہم آپ کو بھی کامنٹ دیتے ہیں.
تھینک یو سر.
جی آپ کا سوال بہت اچھا سوال ہے ویسے بائی دا وے آپ کا. یہ 2 سوال ہیں جی آپ کے.
سیکنڈ رو میں جو
سیکنڈ رو میں صاحب, اور پھر وہ. جی I'll come back.
چیئرپرسن اکنامکس ڈپارٹمنٹ. ریسنٹلی میں نے ایک پی ایچ ڈی تھیسس جو گوادر پہ تھا اس کو ایویلویٹ کیا, تو اس میں بلوچستان کو اور سنتیانگ صوبے کو کمپیئر کیا گیا تھا, اور یہ بتایا گیا تھا کہ سی پیک جو ہے یہ چائنا کی گو ویسٹ پالیسی ہے. ویسٹ میں جو ایریاز رہ گئے تھے ڈیولپمنٹ ریس میں, دیٹ واز فار دیٹ پرپز. تو چائنا نے کیا سیپریٹسٹ موومنٹ کو سنتیانگ میں ختم کرنے کے لیے اکنامک پیکیجز آفر کیے. میں
جی پلیز کیری آن, جلدی سے سوال اپنا اگر کہیں.
جی میں یہ چاہ رہا ہوں کہ کیا یہ نہیں ہو سکتا کہ پاکستان گورنمنٹ اسی چائنیز پالیسی کو ایڈاپٹ کرتے ہوئے اکنامک پیکیجز بلوچستان میں آفر کرے. تھینک یو.
جی اس سیٹ کا یہ سوال. جی ایک اور ادھر سے.
ڈاکٹر عمران دورانی, میرا کویشچن یہ ہے آپ سے کہ جتنے ایئرس کی ہم نے بات کی ہے اس میں ہم نے وار میں کتنا ٹائم پاس کیا ہے. تو جب تک پاکستان کے اگر آپ انڈیکس میں دیکھیں تو پاکستان کی جو سیکیورٹی لیول ہے وہ 2nd لاسٹ پہ ہے یا 3rd لاسٹ پہ ہے. کیا اس سیکیورٹی لیول پہ کوئی بھی انویسٹر باہر سے آئے اور انویسٹ کرے؟
فیئر پوائنٹ.
ہم نے کبھی بھی بات نہیں کی ریجنل اسٹرینتھنگ کی. افغانستان, ایران, انڈیا, وی آر الون ان دس ایریا. ٹھیک ہے, بنگلہ دیش ہم سے آگے نکل گیا, انڈیا ہم سے آگے نکل گیا, ایون افغانستان ابھی ہم سے آگے نکل جائے گا, بلکہ نکل چکا ہے. ہم ابھی تک اپنی بیوروکریسی کو رو رہے ہیں. سر
جی اگر آپ کوئکلی
میرا جو آپ سے ہے, ہم نے جتنی بھی میں نے ڈسکشن سنی ہے ابھی تک, کل سے لے کر ابھی تک, اس میں ہم اسی پرانے پیٹرن کو ابھی تک رو رہے ہیں. Why don't we take quick actions? What the think tank is doing, what the ministries are doing.
ٹھیک ہے جی, نوٹ. لاسٹ کوشچن جی آپ کا, دین آئی ول کلوز. 1 person جی فرام ہیئر, یو کین ٹاس. اور پلیز آپ نے یہ 30 سیکنڈ میں پوچھنا ہے. ایز آلویز.
احمد علی, میں MS اکنامکس کر رہا ہوں لس بلا یونیورسٹی سے. میرا کوشچن ہے کہ جس طرح سر نے کہا ہے کہ چائنا ہمیں $3,003 بلین مطلب پینل سے ڈونیٹ کر رہا ہے, تو میں سمجھتا ہوں تھر پارکر میں تھر کول اتنا بڑا کول پڑا ہے جو ہمارا الیکٹرسٹی پرابلم ختم کر سکتا ہے, جس کی وجہ سے بھی انویسٹر نہیں ہمارے پاس انویسٹ کرتا. تو کیا ہم وہ ڈونیٹ کرنے کے بجائے ہم کہیں کہ بھئی ڈونیٹ نہ کرو, آؤ انویسٹ کرو اور ہمیں الیکٹرسٹی پرابلم سے باہر نکالو.
ٹھیک ہے جی, اس کا وی رسپونڈ ٹو دیٹ. دیکھیے there are lots of questions, I am really pleased, لیکن اب ہمارے پاس ٹائم کم ہے. I would like Dr. Ishrat to give concluding remarks, including covering Yasser آپ کا سوال on productive sectors, and then we'll 1:30 تک ہے یہ تو سب. چلیں, we'll then continue, we have more time. Okay. So then we can just answer these questions first. چلیں آپ نے. Ji, let me just go back to the question on agriculture versus industry. Khalid?
لڑکے کا بھی کہ تھر میں ہو رہا ہے.
جب بچہ دیکھو ایسا ہے کہ ایگریکلچر سب سے زیادہ سیڈ سٹوری ہے اس ملک کی, اور آپ نے بالکل کہا کہ 80% ہماری اکانومی شوڈ بی ڈیپینڈنٹ, اور اس کے اندر جو بھی پیرامیٹرز ہوتے ہیں کہ جس کی بیس پہ وی شوڈ بی ایکسپورٹنگ, تو انفارچونیٹلی وہ نہیں ہو رہا تھا. تو دیٹس وائی یہ لیٹسٹ جو جوائنٹ ورکنگ گروپ جو سی پیک کا بنا ہے دیٹ از آن ایگریکلچر. تو 9 مہینے جب میں وین آئی واز ہیڈنگ سی پیک, تو اس کے اندر لاٹ آف انگیجمنٹ ہیز بن ڈن, اور وہ پروجیکٹ سارے آئیڈینٹیفائی کیے جس کی بیس کے اوپر پاکستان کی جو فنڈامنٹل پرابلم ہے ایگریکلچر کی وہ ریزالو ہو سکے.
آپ کو ایگزامپل دینا پڑے.
پرابلم کیا ہے کہ ہمارے پاس جو سیڈ ہے اس کی کوالٹی بہتر نہیں ہے, اس کی وجہ سے ہماری ایلڈ جو ہے وہ کم سے کم تر ہوتی چلی جا رہی ہے. اس کے علاوہ ہمارے پاس میکنائز ایگریکلچر نہیں ہے, تو اس کی وجہ سے ڈیمونسٹریشن سینٹرز ان کے ساتھ ایگری ہوئے کہ وہ آ کر جو میکنائز آپ کی فارمنگ ہوتی ہے وہ انٹروڈیوس کریں گے اینڈ سو آن. لاسٹلی اس ساری ریسرچ کے اندر جو سب سے بڑا پازیٹیو پوائنٹ تھا وہ یہ تھا کہ جو بلوچستان کے اندر میرانی ڈیم کا ایریا ہے 100,000 ایکڑ آف لینڈ واٹر از اویلیبل, تو دیٹ از گوئنگ ٹو بی پرووائڈنگ لاٹ آف اپرچونیٹی. جہاں تک تھر کا تعلق ہے جی, تھر کے اندر جو انویسٹمنٹ ہے جو آتی ہے نا وہ لانگ ٹرم ہوگی اب, جس کے اندر اس کی گیسیفیکیشن ہے اور گیس سے ریلیٹڈ جتنے پروجیکٹ ہیں. یہ ایک شارٹ ٹرم فکس ہے کہ جن بیچاروں کو بجلی نہیں ملتی فنڈامنٹل ریکوائرمنٹ کے لیے, تو یہ سولر پینل جو ہے اس سے ان کی ضروریات جلد از جلد حل ہو سکتی.
Thank you very much, and with that I will request Dr. Ishrat Hussain to try and answer your questions and also conclude the discussion. And I will also comment that PIDE should adopt a consistency ki policy. That's why investment doesn't come. You keep on changing the time.
Goalposts.
So please, over to you.
Let me first of all thank the panelists and also the audience for their participation in this session. The questions were really very pointed and relevant. Let me begin because I see a lot of young people, so I get inspired by them. Let me start by saying, what is our world view? Is it that we want to be integrated with the world economy? Do we want to liberalize our trade and participate like other countries are doing? Do we want to attract financial flows? Do we want to adopt technology in this country as the engines of growth for the future? Or do we want to remain insular, inward-looking, that anything foreign is anathema for us? They are all here for exploitation. They are here for making, use of our resources and getting out of it. So you have to decide that as the fundamental question for the future direction of this country. I have worked on 50 countries in the world, and except North Korea and Myanmar, which is now opening up, and Cuba, which are opening up, most of the countries, even in Africa, have decided deliberately that they would gain a great deal by being part of the global economy rather than looking inwards. Yours is a $300 billion economy. The world economy is $30 trillion economy. Just 1% of the market share of even China's export market will bring you as much as $30 billion. Just 1%. That is the strength why China grew. They have a $1.4 billion market size, but they didn't content on that. They have now become the world's largest economy, and that's why they have grown by such a large, I would say unprecedented degree that they were able to bring their country from $100 in 1980 to $10,000 today. That is the story why China has increased. They are now receiving $160 billion of foreign direct investments. They are absorbing the technology by sending the best students to the top universities of the United States in engineering, science, and mathematics, and they come back and they establish those labs and transfer the technology, which is then used in the production process. That is the fundamental question we have to decide. And that's for the younger generation. If you want to remain within your own fields, country, ostracized, oblivious of what is happening in the rest of the world, our future, in my view, is going to be very bleak. We have now been left behind. India and Bangladesh both were way behind us in 1990. This Indian rate of growth was 3%, and ours was 6%, and Bangladesh was not even in counting. And both of them now have per capita incomes which are 80% and 65% higher than Pakistan. These are the choices and these are the options. So we have a fundamental decision to take. It's not going to be taken by politicians. It is not taken by anybody else, by us as a society. It is our responsibility to make that choice. Once you have made that choice, then the direction is very clear. You want to be a Vietnam, or you want to remain Pakistan, which is going back. And that is why we have to transform. We don't have to reform anymore. We have to transform our entire ecosystem in order to encourage integration with the rest of the world. You heard the panelist, and you heard Mr. Nadeem-ul-Haq this morning. Our difficulty is that we are running a 21st century economy with the arms and ammunitions of the 19th century. We have inherited a colonial system of administration which is totally irrelevant in today's world. That's why the implementation and execution of CPAC, of the foreign direct investment, of the offers from Qatar and Saudi Arabia are not fulfilled. And that is where our capacity is, that we are become process-oriented bureaucracy rather than performance-oriented bureaucracy. People say in the civil service, has anybody been taken to task for an act of omission? But they have been taken to task for act of commission. So why do you take decisions? Why do you make any commitments about taking this forward? If that is the mentality, then you are doomed. What is the solution? A young girl's digitalization, automation, and computerization of all the business processes of the government are the way forward. It will bring transparency, it will bring efficiency, and it will bring accountability. And I give you one simple example which will illustrate the power of automation. The export refunds by FBR were stuck for years altogether. And at every stage, the exporter had to pay under the table in order to get from one table to another. Even to receive the check, they have to pay 3% just to take their check. 3 years ago, FBR switched over to an end-to-end solution where you upload your claims with supporting documents, and through the AI, the documents are processed, and if all the documents are in order and your claim is verified, then the amount is transferred automatically to your bank account. There is no interaction between a tax official and the taxpayer. And the refunds were processed and paid in 72 hours. This is the power, how the corruption, how the leakages, how the inefficiencies can be removed. But there is a resistance, I can tell you, towards opening up. Just the simple fact that I wanted the websites of the ministries to have all the laws, rules, regulations, because nobody knows what the regulations and what the rules are. And there was nobody prepared to even upload those rules and regulations. Because when you have opacity, you can take discretionary decisions. You can take arbitrary decisions, and you won't be held accountable. And that is where the problem lies. So all the panelists pointed out that we are lacking in execution and we're missing the opportunity. The solution, and you are all students of this university whose name is Balochistan University of Information Technology. We have to start right from school, science, technology, engineering, creative arts, and mathematics, right from the school, and that is the future which will take us there. So thank you very much again for your participation, but it is your decision which direction you want to take this car.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the panelists who joined us virtually, Ms. Maheen Rahman and Mr. Ishaq Birni, and grateful to Mr. Khalid Mansoor. I understand number of questions could not be answered, but we are here, so we can actually do in conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us outside for lunch. I request you to please be on time for the Mahbubul Haq lecture by Professor Michael Spence. It is in Pink Hall in, I think, Block C. It starts at 2 p.m. sharp, Block B. Block A and Block B. It's the Pink Hall. Please be there on time because it's an online lecture. So you'll have to leave the lunch area well before time. Thank you so much.